What's that guy's name, Swizz?
I just said it.
I heard about it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's on the ESPN MMA Instagram.
Zion Clark.
Zion.
Damn, we're live at the same time as a lot of people. We're live. Fresh and Fit is live. No Jumper is live. Oh my God, the Young Thug trial is on. No, it's not. That's people talking about the Young Thug trial. Yeah, I thought it was maybe they were running back like the day or something like that.
Fucking giving his testimony. He was out there snitching right now. You think you're gonna
Bro,
catch a gun on there?
If you saw the yeah, they could definitely hear us. If you saw my search history, it was just me selling jujitsu to my friend's son. The whole time he's like, well, what? He's like, jujitsu? He's like grappling? I'm like, yep. I'm like, it's just like I said, it's grappling. That's what it is. He's like, let me see it. Is it hard? I said, you want to see the best ever? He said, who's the best? So I just started showing him Gordon Ryan just strangling everybody, you know? And he's like, whoa. I'm like, yep, that's right. Tell your dad you want to train jujitsu.
Boxing.
He probably would do it.
Everybody ready?
Yeah, man. See, we do it in the backyard. One Ash Street snow gloves. No. I got a little Charlie horse in my shoulder. Fast as a nun. Episode what?
134.
And before we, Twiz, say what's up to the people real quick, man.
Yo, what's up, man? How y'all feeling tonight, man? How's everybody doing?
Everybody's good. So, let's address the elephant in the room sitting right between the two of us. We have a dear friend and incredible guest on today, Mr. Jay Retcher, hailing all the way originally from CI, now, coming to visit us out of Tampa. Go ahead, Jay. Say what's up to the people, man.
What's going on? It's a good start. You called me an elephant. I know I put on some pounds, but I mean, still, I'm doing all right. But no, I appreciate you guys having me, man. This is great.
Thank you for coming, man.
You guys are doing great work. Keep up the great work. And I'm excited to be on here with you guys.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming by, man. So what's been up, man? Tell us, what's it like coming from beautiful Tampa down to freezing, bitter-ass cold New York?
I'm weird like that. I like the cold weather. I mean, it's great when you can come back for 10 days and be like, all right, deuces, go back down to 71.
True.
But no, I love it, man. I love CI. I love New York, and it'll always be a part of me. I always say, like, I grew up in New York, but I became a man in Tampa. But
I like that.
It's a good mix. Like, and you know me, like, this part of the world is such a big part, and my whole family still lives here. I'm the only person that lives in Tampa, so I'm here back in New York 4 or 5 times a year. I go to games. I support the local businesses, go to Charlie's Hot Dogs and Stuff a Bagel, the same place I've been going since I was 13 years old, when we used to cut school. But Mom, sorry, too late now. 37. But yeah, I still love it here, man. So it's a blessing. Everything's good, man. I'm blessed.
Awesome, man. I love it. So have you caught any sports since you're up here? So tell the people a little bit about yourself, so that this way, we can introduce the people to the kind of guests we have on here and what you do.
So I, born and raised in CI, moved down to Tampa when I was 20, so back in 2005.
Jesus Christ,
And,
it's been that long?
Yeah, 17 years.
Dude, you've been in Tampa for 17 years?
Yeah. I know, it's kind of real weird when I say it, too.
What?
And I moved down with 3 guys that we grew up with, and about 2 weeks later, they all moved back, left me down there by myself. I got a job at Frozen Ropes, coaching baseball. And boom, 2 years later, I was the head baseball instructor. So I went from a part-time guy on the weekend to the head baseball instructor in 2 years. Did that for about 7-8 years, and then I was driving home from work one day, and I heard a thing online or on the radio for broadcasting. You want to be a sports broadcaster? We were talking about it before the show. It was like, that's what I wanted to do with my whole life. So 28, scrapped everything. I said, hey, man, I'm going to sell my car. I'm going to kind of take a big step back, take a hit financially, and kind of, start building my foundation to try to get into the radio world. Got an internship, part-time, worked my way all the way up, hosting boom, like 2 years ago on Beckles and Retro. Now we got a new show, J and Z. So now hosting my own show in Tampa. So a top 20 market every day, noon to 3. You can hear it on the iHeartRadio app, live, even if you're here in New York. So it's a blessing, man, being able to work in Tampa, doing a whole bunch of different sports, working with the Lightning, with the Bucks, with the Rays, USF, the Rowdies, doing soccer as well, MMA, WWE. Like, I'm a jack of all trades. I love all sports.
Yeah.
People say, oh, this sport is whack, this sport is whack. My grandfather, God rest his soul, one of the people that really got me involved in sports, he used to tell me, don't make fun of anybody that likes a sport because they're either going to win a gold medal or make millions of dollars off it. You know, he was a military guy, and his grandparents are figure skaters. So you would never make the correlation that he would be into figure skating.
Yeah,
Loved it.
That's awesome,
Loved it.
dude.
So from that, it really gave me a perspective. So you'll get people and say, oh, I love this, but I hate soccer. It's like, all right, well, World Cup's on. Nobody's going to tune into your show when you're talking about World Cup because it's not genuine. So when the World Cup was on, like, people knew, like, Jay knows what he's talking about. And, you know, hockey and things like that, where I played hockey for a while. So down there, you know, even though the Lightning, one of the best teams in any sport, I'm one of like 5 or 6 people that have been covering them for about 8 years. So being able to go to the All-Star game in Las Vegas, go to the outdoor game in Tennessee last year, I've been blessed, man, and just have a unique perspective because I didn't grow up down there. I grew up here. So when you grow up in CI, Brentwood, we're so close.
Yeah.
I always tell people, you have this misconception about Long Island, right? Everybody thinks, oh, Long Island, Hamptons, right? Oh, Long Island, if you know people.
Hedges and mansions.
You know, out, they'll know, like, out west where it's a little more affluent. But I always tell people when you follow the three railroad lines down that middle line, different world, man. It's middle class. It's middle lower class. You know, it's a very diverse population. I mean, you go across the line, you go from, you know, you see it when you change to Jamaica, right? You go like Wyandanch, and you go all the way down to Amityville and, you know, CI, Brentwood. It's a different world. Like, it's 10 minutes north or south. It's different. But I wouldn't have changed how I grew up any other way because I really feel like my diversity and the people that I grew up with and the experiences that I had, you know, I was a minority, right? I mean, 1,600 kids in our high school. There were 16 white kids, and I was one of them.
Yeah,
so
pretty
looking
much
at it,
for sure.
you know, it's a different type of world, right? And then going down there, it's not the same. So I think that gave me a leg up on a lot of other people because I know what it takes. You know, my dad's still doing the same thing. My dad's a custodian. My mom's a lunch lady, still working in the same CI school district. If anybody's watching this now that went to school in CI, they probably went to school when my parents were, right? Went to school with my brother or my sisters, or, you know, CI till we die. And it's you know, I live a blessed life, man. I'm, again, things like this, I think it's important, like these communications that we have with each other, building relationships. My favorite quote of all time, Jackie Robinson, your life is, I always screw it up, but it's something about how, like, your life is really measured by the impact it has on others. So the more people that you impact in your life, that's really the importance of what your life is all about. It's not just about you. It's not just about the wealth that you can accumulate or the experiences necessary that only you have, but having that experience with other people and bigging them up and making people have a better life because of your presence in it. You know, I think that's just one way that I try to live my life. So I feel like living like that and being like that and being, you know, my grandma who's 85 that lived in CI her entire life. She
whole life.
You know, you've met my grandma.
Yeah, man.
She would tell me when I was very young, don't matter if you're black, white, green, or blue. If you're good to me, I'm good to you. And I feel like those are the kind of messages, and that's just the kind of foundation that I have in my life that I really think that has a lot to do with why I've been as successful as I have. Listen, I know that there's higher mountains to reach, but I just feel like you spread those good vibes, they come back to you.
Now, do you think that's something that you found while, like, coaching, or is that what kind of drove you to coach originally?
Well, I just think that's how
He was
I always,
coaching.
like, I was always like that. And it's funny because I was thinking about this on the way over here. Like, Justin's about like a year and a half younger than me.
Yeah.
But I kind of like coached him and like
for
seniors
sure.
and juniors. Like, his mom and dad would come up to me like, go talk to Justin.
They'd be like, yo, Justin grounded out to the second
Go help
baseman
him.
again. Tell him why he's late.
Yeah, and it was just
You know?
Here's the thing. I've always been able to tell people things and coach them without making them feel like crap. And that's the problem, is that when you are a coach or when you're a leader, and you guys know this doesn't have to do with sports, but when you have a boss that doesn't know how to talk to you, doesn't know how to get to your, the message doesn't get through. He could be telling you the right thing.
Yeah,
but if
exactly.
he doesn't tell you the way, in a way where you can grasp the information, right? I used to say this as a coach all the time. If somebody doesn't understand what you're saying, it's not up to them to learn better or to listen better. It's up to you to change your message so that you can get to their level so that they can take in that information. That's the most important thing. And being the oldest of 4 kids, I think helped. My dad was a coach. My grandfather was a coach. So I think I had that in my blood. My family's always been like that. My family's always been very welcoming, and you always want to get down to that person's level. You never want to talk down to people. And that's my big thing, is being able to work with people. If I can tell you, let's say I'm your superior, and I do this at work now, because not only am I a host, I'm the assistant program director. So I kind of have a hand in what goes on with all the shows. Yeah. And I like that. I don't want to be like the main dog, because then you're off the mic and you're doing a lot of technical. I like to just have a seat at the table. Yeah. I like to give my input, because I want everybody to win. It's not just a personal thing. And our morning show doesn't always get the love or the appreciation or the attention that some of our superiors. So I really took on an onus the last couple of years of just being with them, giving them constructive criticism. And they're so thankful that I can get to their level and be able to tell them, like, that segment didn't work, and here's why. Yeah. The segment didn't work because boom, 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 and you just sounded unprepared. When they know you care, and they know that it's not just like boom, boom, negative, 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 then people take that in. If you just come at people all the time or you only talk to them when things are wrong, you're going to tune it out. Facts. You got to tell people good things too. Like, you got to recognize when people are doing well, or, when they're putting themselves at where they improved on something. Somebody may not be great at something, but if you see that they've gotten better, or you see that they've put in the effort to get better, like your podcast, man. I've watched these episodes before. I've seen it morph, and I've reached out to you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
A couple months ago.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Keep up the good
just
work,
with
man.
Just with some validation. Like, listen, man, like, if people can't watch every episode, I'm telling you right now, the ones I've seen, I can clearly tell the improvement and stuff. And that means a lot to us, coming from you, especially because you have the radio experience. So, we appreciate all feedback, whether it be positive, negative, constructive. However, we appreciate it. We take it in, we digest it and talk about it. Like me, Berto, and Twiz will literally discuss, all the feedback that we get. If it's good, if it's bad. Like, I had to stop reading some of the comments because I would try to adjust based on like all of the criticism. I'm like, damn, this guy said this about me. This guy said this. And we have some videos on YouTube that have, 500,000 views. So with 500,000 views, you end up with thousands of comments,
And the more people it's more times than not, the people who are commenting are the ones who have like, have something negative to say, right? You don't comment.
100%. 100%.
People give out so much more hate than they do give out positivity.
Yeah.
So you're going to get 10 hateful comments for the one good comment you get. There's times where we'll speak to people that we know that might watch the show, and they're like, "Oh, I've been watching your show for a while now. It's great." And I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea you were watching it."
Yeah.
Because they don't say anything, right?
For sure.
But the people who want to call me an idiot for calling a chimpanzee an ape or whatever I said on that video.
Wrong phylum.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, come on, dude. Like, seriously, man?
Yeah.
That was igneous rock.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. Give
How
me a
dare
break,
you? It's definitely not a silverback.
Yeah. But
those guys
you're totally right.
It's
that's
true,
going to
man.
exist, and that's perfectly fine.
And you're going to get that. And you're going to get that. And that kind of goes into why, like, when you watch the news, right? The majority of the news is negative, right? People like that. People love car crashes. People like that kind of stuff. That's why they slow down their car. Like, people are more apt to slow down their car for a car crash than they are for people selling, raffle tickets in front of the supermarket.
For sure.
Go to Cooperstown or something like that. So,
you want a story to tell. Most people want a story to tell.
We have a live text line and for our show.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I always say to myself, or not to myself, but I always say to our listeners, like, I would never let my mom see this, because it's bad, man. Like, it's some of the worst. Like, you guys
some of it's nasty, dude.
It's every day, man. Like, I've had my old co-hosts, man, they would call them the N-word and stuff like that. Like, it's crazy.
It's probably like a Call of Duty lobby in there, because sports fans are passionate.
They are, and there's blurred lines, and those people usually, majority of the time, wouldn't be saying that if it was face to face.
If it was face to face,
it just shows you that nowadays you have so many Twitter tough guys, so many keyboard warriors that they like to hide behind that, and to be able to vent the frustration that they have with their life, and they project their negativity on you. So you got to rise above that stuff. You're right. Like, you can read all of it. I kind of take everything with a grain of salt. Like, you're appreciative of the people that say the good things, but the people that say the bad things, like, to me, it says more about them than it does about you. Yeah. So the constructive criticism, like, you always want to consider the source and where you're getting that kind of stuff from, because you can't take every single one to heart, because
you can't.
Your emotion, it's going to be an emotional roller coaster at the end of the day.
Drive you crazy, man.
Yeah, you'll drive you nuts. And at the end of the day, you got to have some kind of self-peace. That's the most important thing. Like, regardless if it's just work or a hobby or whatever you do, like, if you have stuff like that puts you in that mental state where you're so happy, but then you're so pissed.
You feel accomplishment for getting the stuff done, and then
Exactly.
you're like, damn, dude, if we're just getting negative feedback. But, it's human nature. I mean, you're much more likely to tell somebody to avoid a restaurant than recommend a restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
True.
You mentioned something I really wanted to ask you about. You mentioned about fans writing in, and we're talking about sports fans in general. I'm sure you visited many stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
Who's got the rowdiest fans? Like, who's the most ruthless? Who's got the most ruthless fan base?
Well, I was just in Philly last week for the Army-Navy game, and it was different because it wasn't like your typical Philly fan base because it was Army-Navy. It was so unique. Like, it was just probably one of the most incredible experiences I've ever been in.
That's
my entire
actually a
life.
really interesting point.
Those people, like, they talk smack and they don't curse. It's kind of weird. Like, you're just like, what? Like, you guys really stink. Look ahead. And, like, it's just,
You
it's
play
nuts.
ball like a girl.
Obviously, Yankee Red Sox is just another level. I mean, we went to a Yankee Met game years ago, and we had a Yankee shirt on. We were at Shea Stadium, people throwing batteries at us. Like, it's pretty intense. But probably the most
Wrong borough.
most unique experience that I've ever had was over in Manchester, England, going to see Manchester United play Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League game for soccer, and to see 80,000 people, nobody on their phone. Everybody paying attention. No big screen. They don't have like a big Titantron or anything like that. Everybody's paying attention to the game. And they give a standing ovation to the team after they lost 2-0. And it just kind of showed you the difference, like with sports. Like, they're rabid fans, but at the end of the day, they're just so appreciative of the effort, even though the result wasn't what they wanted. And it kind of it was surreal. It really was. So, I mean, it's not as rabid, but it just shows you that even from state to state, from stadium to stadium, to country, it could be completely different. Like, I've heard stories about St. Louis. I've never been there, but those are the kind of people, like, if you're there visiting them, they'll, like, pat you on the shoulder, like, hey, you're in town for the weekend? Go to this restaurant. You'll really enjoy it. And you're like, wow, that's really nice.
Yeah, in New York, they're like, wrong jersey,
in New York,
loser.
idiot. They'll say that's your son. Like, right?
Yeah.
So it really depends on where it is. And it's just,
OD.
it's crazy.
Father,
man.
son walking down the street in the Boston jersey. Your father failed you. Your father failed you.
That's not your father.
Yeah.
Look like you're raising another little loser.
You're adopted. Like, that's the kind of stuff you'll hear.
Yeah,
Terrible.
OD, man.
What's funny is that, I used to go to a lot of Subway Series games when I was a kid. My dad was a diehard Mets fan. Go figure. I'm a Mets fan. I'm a Dallas fan. I'm just a fan of like teams that like can't make it, right? Haven't won in my lifetime. But the back and forth is. I'm just confirming what you're saying. The back and forth is insane, and these are both New York teams.
Yeah.
And they're not even that far away from each other.
No, you're talking the Bronx and Queens.
Yeah, before that day.
Flushing. Yeah. No, it's
mortal enemies.
It's crazy. I mean, I actually saw a funny fight. We went to a Boston Yankee game at Yankee Stadium, right? And a buddy of mine had some tickets from his company, so we were down in like the Legends.
Oh, nice.
Area.
Bougie time.
I went in, they had like shrimp and lobster and shit. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, how much is this? They're like, take as much as you want.
They gave you that hat, too.
Yeah. No, I bought this hat the day of. I was like, I can't go in there with a fitted with sweat rings. Yeah. I was like, we need to go, something. So
yeah, classy.
there was a Boston fan and a Yankee fan that get into this altercation. It was so funny because the cop that came and deaded it was so hilarious because these guys were so wasted about to fight. Like, like the paths where you go to get the beers and you go to the bathroom, like what do they call it? Like the little Segway areas where you just walk around.
Yeah, I should know this. I worked at a baseball stadium for many years.
Yeah, they were about to scrap. This cop came over, and he was the most boss cop with his vibe. Comes over holding his belt, thumbs in his belt. He comes over and he goes, hey. He's like, you guys going to cut this out, or you guys going to fight? He's like, you're not going to fight? Stop. And the guy was like, ugh. And they just split up. They just split and went opposite directions. The guy just came like a boss. So like NYPD, he was like, yo, what are you doing? Are you going to get this shaken or are you bullshitting? Like, what's going on? And then they both just went their separate ways. It was great.
So with courage.
Yeah, that's it.
Courage.
That's it. But it was, it was two guys that, even if they fought, nobody was going to get hurt. It was like two of those guys that were just like,
they would have swung a miss and fell down.
Yeah, it would have been like that.
Go.
You remember that old fight that was like viral on the internet? It was like those two like bikers, they're like the cyclists that get in a fight, and it's the weakest fight. It was like 17,000 miles into this race. So everybody's like, they couldn't even stand. Their legs are shaking and they're trying to fight. And like nobody even landed a punch. It was just a whole bunch of missing. And then they both just like needed help getting their bikes to get back in the race. It was like ridiculous. So, sports fans can definitely get it in. Hopefully you get, a cop with some assertiveness in it that can kind of dead that.
When he mentioned soccer immediately, I was like, yeah, soccer's probably one of the rowdier ones.
Yeah, I actually didn't expect you to mention that, but it's really cool that you said like they respected the game. It reminds me of like how, you know, in Japan, how they receive MMA and martial arts. Like you hear no sound.
No, yeah,
like
they
if
watch-
you ever,
it's like that with pro wrestling too.
Yeah.
They'll sit there with their hands on their knees and they'll wait for something, and then they'll pop, and then
Yeah.
they'll stop. Well, you see, it's just a different, and that's the one thing with sports is it really highlights the differences in our cultures, right? You
Yeah.
never see a Japanese player spit on a baseball field. Right? It's
Oh my
wild,
God, that's
right?
a good
I
point.
remember Ichiro when he broke a bat one time. He was like down. He was so crestfallen. He was sitting in the dugout like he couldn't believe it because that's like a tool of his. I just saw something with Rafael Nadal the other day talking about tennis rackets, and he goes, you know, somebody made this. I'm never gonna bang it on the ground. Like you see Nick Kyrgios and some of these other tennis guys, and they're slamming their racket on the ground. He's like, I would never do that. There's certain cultures that they look at things in such a different light, and I think you can really like
Wow.
educate yourself. And Japanese baseball players, to me, I love that. Like I think that's one of the things that you can really take that and put it into your own life. Like you really should respect like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because we're just so flippant with a lot of these things. Like, it doesn't matter.
I
don't
paid
care,
for
blah,
it.
blah. I paid for it. I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But, man, those guys would never do anything like that. And then if you look back at look at guys like now, obviously one of the biggest stars in the world, looking at Shohei Ohtani, like you'll never see him ever spit on the field. You'll never see him do anything. He won't slam his glove. He won't slam his helmet. He won't slam his bat. Like they just don't do that. They look at
Yeah.
life a totally different way. And I really think those are the type of things that we could take to our culture. We're so reactionary. And yeah, it's a great thing because we get all of our information on our fingertips, right? We get
Yeah,
these
yeah.
things and, you know, we get paid or we get, you know, views and clicks for being reactionary so quick. But I don't know if that's necessarily the best because we're kind of going back to some of the negativity that, you know, I get in radio. A lot of times, like I'll get a negative tweet or something and I'll just go, it's not worth it, man. Take 5-10 minutes. If I really feel like something like that needs to be addressed, then maybe I'll address it. I always think like, what would my mom and dad think? Like what would, they always say like, you could be arguing with an idiot, but from a distance, nobody can tell the difference.
yeah.
Right? Think about that.
Yeah.
Like somebody could be arguing with someone and you're like baiting them, but from a distance, like, look at those two idiots.
Yeah, you're
they
right.
Don't, they don't know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, Hov said that.
Yeah, and isn't that,
You know,
it's like,
Pete,
think
what he
about
say,
that.
People from a distance can't see who
He
is
said,
who.
"Don't argue with fools, because people from a distance can't tell who is who."
There you go. Exactly.
You know?
It's really important to do that. And I try to ignore a lot of that stuff, especially with social media, because I'm on Twitter a lot. But people always try to bait you and try to get you into those things. And I just ignore them. And that pisses them off more when you just ignore them altogether.
It's a skill to
It
be
is.
able to
And
ignore that
to
stuff.
me, to be able to let that slide off my back, I know that not a lot of people could do that. There was something that I addressed about a month ago with our local university, with USF, and people saying that our radio station didn't support them. And it was one of those times where I did answer back. And I took a 10-minute segment of my show and I fired off all the things that we did for them. And some people said, oh, that came off as petty. I said, listen, I'm not that guy that's going to respond to everything. But if
Yeah.
I'm going to respond to something, it's because I need to set the record straight. And to me, that's when I think it holds more volume. When you do something like that and you do it once, it's poignant because people know Jay's not going to come out of his face and say things like that unless he means it. Like unless that like it comes from the heart, and then I don't address it, and then you move on,
Yeah.
right? But if you respond to every little thing, like it's just people are baiting you, man. You don't
Yeah.
want to be that person, like reactionary,
Yeah.
because people are just going to get a rise out of you, and then you're the sucker.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be a sucker, man. That's the thing, is because
Yeah.
it's a dime. Those suckers born every minute.
Yeah.
You don't want to be one of those guys.
No, that's true. And I think, number one, I think that encourages more people to say negative things because they get the
Yeah, of
response.
course. Mhm.
And number two, I think it devalues when you actually do respond. Because
Yeah.
if you respond to everything, it starts to mean nothing. You know, it's like parents that discipline their kids like for every single thing. It's like now the discipline means nothing.
You're right.
Because white noise.
You know? Yeah, it just it just gets repetitive and it loses that sting. You know? So I gotta agree with that. But yeah, man, is there anything going on in sports that you guys want to talk about? Anything that you're
you got?
thinking about?
What do I got? Oh, man,
I know
have so many things.
I wanted to talk about this Zion MMA fighter.
Yeah, we were talking
Zion
about him
Clark?
a little bit before we went live. He's the and I've been seeing him for a while now, maybe like 6 months. He's a mixed martial arts fighter who also like a wrestler.
He was a wrestler first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't have legs.
Yeah.
And he just had his first either semi-pro or pro fight. I didn't watch the whole fight, so I don't want to talk about the fight if I didn't watch the whole thing. I think
Yeah.
it's unfair to him. But he won the fight 30-28. 30-27, excuse me.
30-20.
All right.
30,
So
27.
unanimously?
Unanimously, he won every round. I watched a couple minutes of it, and I was kind of like, this is... I don't know.
He can move.
Yeah, he could definitely move. He's strong as hell. I almost find it like, who has the advantage here? You know what I mean? Is it the guy that has the legs, that has that mobility, or is it the guy without the legs because now he has 50% less for you to actually try to grab onto, hang on to? Because I sort of looked like the guy just was out of options of where he could grab.
Because when he takes you down to the ground, you have significantly less options. He gets on top of you, you can't even pull guard or anything.
Yeah, you can't pull guard, you can't get any leg entries, like you can't. But then at the same time, like, my question is he a downed opponent all the time, or can you head kick him? Like that, you got to start to ask these questions.
There has to be an adaptation of the rules, you would think, in that aspect of it. I mean, obviously, if he's a down opponent, you could probably kick him in the stomach or kick him in the chest.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do that. You can't kick him in the face. But if you're talking, it depends on what kind of rules. Like, that is going to probably constitute having some semblance of a rule change. Because if you remember back in the 90s, when they had Pride, they had no down elbows or anything like that, no elbows. But you could soccer kick somebody in the head.
Which is crazy.
That's the thing, which is to us, to them, and talk about difference in cultures, to them having the elbow and guys like Tito Ortiz and Mark Coleman coming across with your elbow to a guy and being able to cut him up here, to them, that was like, oh my gosh, you're drawing blood. We're like, yeah, but you're kicking a guy in the head. Yeah. So you could probably kick his head into next week, which was, Rampage lost a terrible fight like that in the corner one time. But yeah, you're right. I think that's definitely open debate of, all right, well, now is he a downed opponent?
Yeah.
Because I have to be able to kick him because there is less surface area for him. And how do you attack a fighter like that? Do you have to get down to their level somehow? Are you more of a stand-up fighter? Are you screwed, really, if you stand up more? Do you have to be more in a more crouched position? We see John Jones coming out to fights where he's almost coming down on all fours. I don't think it's crazy to wonder if that may be the best way to attack somebody like that. Because he has a clear advantage for one reason. He understands what it takes to have to fight like that.
Yeah.
You don't. There's not 50 guys that are like that. More power to him. If you're going to be able to go in there and do your thing and you make them change the rules, I'm all for it. That's the one thing I love about sports. I love that there's certain athletes out there, whether it's by deficiency, whether it's just by their greatness and their talent, that force you to have to kind of rethink the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Will Chamberlain was so good in basketball that people were like, all right, hold on.
They had to change the rules for him.
They had to change the rules. This guy's way too good.
They started the
3-second
rule because of him, didn't they?
I think you couldn't shoot the ball behind over the backboard and things. It's wild that these guys changed the rules of the game. To me, that's greatness on a whole different level.
Yeah, that's happened. We've seen that a lot recently in MMA because it's significantly younger in comparison to other sports.
Yeah, it's like a teenager in the sports world.
Yeah, but you see the way people are training and fighting, and if you watch MMA 10, 15 years ago, it's significantly the strategy to win and what you want to be proficient at, to be good at is going to be different than what it was 10, 15 years ago. And
you're totally right. And think about when people came into MMA, they would say, this is a boxer, or this was a kick fighter, or this is a Kenpo karate guy. That's what they would say. And now it's just well, you have to be a well-rounded martial artist. Yeah. And GSP really was one of those first guys that was he's just a fighter, right? He could do everything. That guy could stuff a takedown, but he's Canadian. They don't have wrestling in high schools. Yeah. I know they didn't, or they may. I don't know. I think England's where they don't have it, but still, he wasn't a big time wrestler. But his wrestling was so proficient, you would think he was a D1 guy that went to Iowa.
Yeah, and as far as I know, I don't think he started training actual wrestling.
He was a karate guy.
Yeah, until he was already fighting MMA.
Think about how wild that is.
Loosen that nut for him so he could. So we could tilt that up. There we go. Good. How's that better?
Perfect.
Nice. So so I think he got a late start on the wrestling, but really excelled.
He's a specimen.
Yeah.
GSP's a specimen. No, I'm thinking of who's the other guy? Ben Askren. He's not Canadian, right? Where's he from? Ben Askren.
No,
he's American. Tupelo. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other wrestlers from Canada. I can't. But GSP's one of those guys. He is who he is.
He was one of the early steps, I think, of what you're trying to get at, of the
mixed martial arts.
The actual mixed martial artists, because you used to be able to come in if you had one weapon that was super sharp, you could win. Whether you had really sharp jiu-jitsu or really sharp wrestling or really sharp striking, you could beat most guys. Now these guys are starting as children, training everything. I mean, now you have, think about it, MMA from back in the early 90s and stuff like that. You're looking now, there's an entire generation that's been fighting mixed martial arts all at the same time since they're 6 years old. It's like now we're going to start to see the real elevation or the improvement of the sport, like the way you see boxing when you have guys like De La Hoya that had gloves on at 5 years old. You know, you had guys like Floyd Mayweather that had gloves on at 5 years old. You know, now you're going to have MMA fighters that had 4-ounce gloves on at 5 years old. And now you have like this newest MMA, the youngest UFC fighter to get a contract. He got one at 17 years old.
Yeah.
What is it, Rojas Jr. or
Rosas Jr., yeah.
Rosas Jr. Yeah, he 17
Just
years old.
choked a grown man to sleep the other day. Well, he didn't choke him to sleep, but he did choke
He
a grown.
tapped him, and he's 18.
I think the analogy that would go well is Steph Curry. Is because, you know, the adaptation of the three-pointer. I remember clear as day, Charles Barkley was like, jump shooting team will never win the NBA title. Okay.
Now that's all that wins.
Well, when you have the Warriors, with at the time when KD was on the team, you had 3 of the top 10 shooters of all time in Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant on the same team with one of the other 10, Steve Kerr as the head coach. I mean, they're going to figure out a way. And when your proximity is over 40%, like you're shooting from 3 better than people are shooting from 2, you got a chance. But why? Because Steph Curry grew up with his dad, also one of the better shooters of all time, and he was shooting from 3. I mean, when Dell and those guys were growing up, like guys would take teams would take 7 or 8 a game when we were growing up. Now, guys are taking that many in a half. Or
guys
a
are
quarter.
hitting 8.
It's wild. Think about how deep. Think about how Steph Curry really changed the game, right? Jamie Alert, these guys at all levels. I mean, you're going back to like Trae Young, and you're thinking about guys like LaMelo Ball. Guys are shooting from the logo. Like, if you would have done that years ago, your ass would have been on the bench in 5 minutes, not even 5 seconds. But Steph Curry has totally changed the game, where if you take a 3, a step back 3, or you take a 3 1-on-4, or a 3 in transition when you have numbers 3-on-1, people don't bat an eye at it because he is so good at it that he can shoot the 3 from 35 feet out and turn around and head back the other way before it goes through the hoop, and then it goes in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, to me, that's kind of like with MMA, where these guys have been practicing the 3-pointer since they were 5 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Steph's been shooting that from the NBA line since he was in college.
Think about that. You probably
exactly.
probably early.
Probably before that.
Yeah.
Probably early.
Yeah, he was in high school, I'm sure, after games.
Oh, yeah.
Chucking that 3 from back there. Chucking
Yeah.
it like, you know, it's unbelievable. So I really, and I'm sure before that was the dunk.
Yeah.
You know, like nobody was really dunking, and then it became the majority of some guy's game.
And every once in a while, right now in MMA, you see guys that make it to, right before the top 10 where they're really good at a single discipline. And it worked for them up until that point. But then they break into that top 10. And me and Justin talk about this all the time. The top 10 of any division within, I'm talking about the UFC specifically, is just a different world. Like, you can't just be good at jiu-jitsu. You can't just be a really good kickboxer. Like, you have to be well-rounded. Like, you'll make it to a certain point, but, you might not make it, be champion.
Yeah, with the big boys, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, unless you get rushed to the top like Alex Pereira.
Facts, man.
If they just take you and say, hey, listen, you want to know what would be a really fucking good story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll put you against a guy who's gonna fight you in your fight because he's fucking badass. Sean Strickland.
Well, that's
right.
what-
And then we're gonna put you, and then after you knock him out, because we know he's gonna be arrogant enough to stand up there and fight with you, we'll put you back to fight Israel Adesanya.
Well,
But-
go ahead, sorry.
When you do have that one weapon that's that sharp, you can do that. Because Alex Pereira, I'm telling you, he knocks out 90% of that division. He's got that touch of death shit. It doesn't matter if it's the 5th round, 3rd round. He's like Francis Ngannou at that weight class. It's, like Francis Ngannou, he doesn't need to learn wrestling. I don't care. There's one guy that out-wrestled him because for some reason, Stipe had some kind of ridiculous ability to absorb a couple of those shots. Nobody's absorbed him since, including Stipe. So it's like, when you have that one weapon that's that sharp, that's the only exception, I feel like. Because it's, he's got a Ginsu, versus other guys got butter knives. Like, it's very different.
The one thing you have to remember, too, about UFC is Dana White took the model from Vince McMahon, the WWE, and as much as they have rankings, at the end of the day, he's selling fights.
Yeah.
So did Alex, and one thing I hate about MMA when people are like, he doesn't deserve that fight. I could give 2 craps who deserves what. At the end of the day, you and I, we consume MMA for what? Entertainment. I want to be entertained. I don't care if it's the 2 best boxers in the world, 2 best MMA guys in the world. If I don't know who the hell they are, I don't care. And I'm the biggest sports fan you guys will ever meet.
Yeah, facts.
Right? That's why Jake Paul fights Tyron Woodley. Sign me up. I know both of those guys. Jake Paul, Logan Paul are going to be at WrestleMania. I'm in. Sign me up. Name value. That storyline, Alex Pereira against Israel Adesanya. That sells tickets.
It does.
That doesn't. I don't care if he's ranked 7th or 77th. It's about the storyline. He took that from Vince McMahon. I don't care who deserves what. If you're a boring fighter, I don't care if you're the number 2 fighter in the world. If I know that it's going to be a snooze fest for 25 minutes, I don't really care. Like, give me a guy that's ranked 5th that's going to put him in there. That's why guys like Conor McGregor, and I also think kind of what you guys are saying is it depends on when guys fight, right?
Yeah.
5-10 years ago, maybe let's say 5 years ago, Cain Velasquez was the top of the mountain. Brock Lesnar was the top of the mountain. Those guys, big wrestlers. Would Francis Ngannou be the same guy when those two, who the top guys right now, even a guy like Curtis Blades is a ground guy, right? But there's no big like Brock was the man. Like he went to Minnesota. Cain Velasquez, Arizona State. Like these guys were primo wrestlers in the game that learned how to strike. Not, Cain more than Brock. But those guys against Ngannou, then we may not see the same Francis Ngannou.
You're right.
Right? Conor McGregor came in at the right time. I was there at UFC, was it 20, whatever it was, at Madison Square Garden when he beat Eddie Alvarez. I like Eddie Alvarez. But if it's 5 years earlier and he's fighting a prime BJ Penn, I don't know, man, because if BJ gets that to the ground, he's going to yoke him up because BJ's 10 times a jiu-jitsu guy as anybody's fought, maybe outside of Nate Diaz. So timing is huge when it comes to MMA when divisions are great.
Yeah.
Okay, 135 is, in my opinion, the best right now. 205 was the bee's knees for so long. Now it's like Jan Blachowicz, I think, is the guy. But remember, it was John Jones, Machida, Rashad, Chuck Liddell. Like, it was a murderer's row. Yeah. It's not like that anymore. So the weight classes kind of go through these valleys and peaks where sometimes you're the right guy at the right time. And I think Ngannou's one of those guys, too. It's like, all right, well, DC was the heavyweight champ. He beat Stipe. People, Stipe is the best heavyweight of all time. I don't know. Like, it's a little bit of a downturn in the heavyweight division right now. No, not knocking guys, but that's just the way the UFC goes. And that's why, to this day, Dana White gets into a position and goes, I don't care what the rankings are. Like, what's the next fight for 170? Kamaru just got knocked out, right? So Leon Edwards is going to be the champ. Is he going to fight Colby Covington next?
Yeah.
Who deserves probably the next shot?
Yeah, but they're talking about Colby.
But what's going to happen in that fight? Colby's going to try to take him down. Leon's not going to be able to defend the takedown. Then Colby's going to be the champ, and then you see Colby and Kamaru again. Or do you put Leon against Jorge Masvidal
because of the storyline?
Be with the 2-piece and the chicken nugget and the shake and all that stuff. I don't care. Jorge's ranked 15th. Sign me up. I want to watch that rather than Leon and Colby, right?
I want to watch it
it's
too.
It's about entertainment.
You know how I feel about this.
Yeah, your arms are folded already.
So here's my thing, right? And I don't like it when they do. I agree with you to a certain extent, right? But I like the overall story, right? I'm not particularly sold on like, Jorge versus Leon for the belt, because I don't think Jorge deserves a shot at the title. It's just like, that's just how I feel about it. And even though it might be a cool fight, like, I don't think that I don't want to see that. When you got guys like that are new at the top, there's so many other people that deserve a title shot that I'd rather see get it, because I'm going to watch it regardless. I'm going to watch this Saturday, I'm going to watch next Saturday, and I'm going to watch it the one after that. But that's the point, is that you're going to watch it regardless. Yeah.
But when you make fights like this, it's not about getting you.
Yeah,
they already got you.
Regardless. It's about
they already got you. They're trying to get him, that guy that's like, I'm only watching if that guy goes, or I've heard of that guy before, Yeah. And if you're a guy
that's to get your wife, it's to get
when you're a promoter, he's got you, so he's not worried about you. The promoter is trying to get the people that only, I'm going to buy 2 pay-per-views this year. The promoter's going, I want this to be the pay-per-view right here. Because people go, oh, Jorge Masvidal. Whether you know him from the political side, whether you know him of Kimbo's guy, or Bully Beatdown or anything like people, that's a name value. Guys like Chael Sonnen was a guy that talked him into title shot time and time and time. I don't think he deserved any of them, maybe. No. But that's the thing about, I think, and I see where you're coming from, because for a long time I was like
purist.
That. Yeah. And I like that, because I'm the kind of guy, I'm that guy too.
Yeah, because he'll fuck up a weight class. You look at
I'll watch the fights no matter what. I'm just like,
I think it could ruin a division, right? Mm-hmm. When you get a guy and you put him up and he wins it. Look at Alex Pereira is a perfect example. It's a little bit different because Israel's already beaten everybody there, right? So a new champ
cleans it out.
Yeah, he cleaned it out. A new champ coming out is more refreshing. Me personally, I like it because I think him versus Bobby Knuckles would be a great fight. I think Robert wins that fight, bring him back, gives him the belt back around his waist, and I like him. I'm a fan of him. I would love to see him become champion again. And I think Israel holding the belt it will never happen. Plus, the odds of him continuing to get that fight is less likely. So that mix up in the division is nice. But when you got guys that are super popular, like Paddy Pimblett at 155, he's not fucking with any of those guys at the top of 155.
No.
He's not, but he is going to get those
But
fights.
he is going to get that fight.
But we'll see. When he gets there, we'll have to see what happens, because I do agree to a point, but I do also kind of empathize with Dana because he's running a business. So you do want to keep on selling out every event. You want to, and if you want to keep on putting the most effective fighters, you're going to have nothing but a bunch of guys crotch sniffing and fighting for doubles against the cage and guys defending and then the ref breaks them up and then they clinch again. It's going to be like like one of those boxing matches that's 2 punches clinch, 2 punches clinch, where I'm just like, you clinch again, I'm taking a point.
Yeah, and that's why I say like guys like the behind the scene guys like Forrest and Mick Maynard, the guys who put the fights together, like that's not a job I want. That shit's hard because not only do you got to get the fans stimulated and wanting to go out and get that. You're absolutely correct. The people not like us, right? Yeah. Not the people who are going to watch it regardless because we're degenerates.
Yes.
But the people who are going to invite everybody over and say, hey, listen, I'm happy to have the fight tonight. Like let's all watch it. And that's what you have to do. You have to put together those electric fights. Those Israel Pereira fights.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a perfect storm, right? Sometimes it's the perfect storm where you have the two best fighters in the weight class, and it's like they both deserve it, and you get that, and it's like you don't even have to sell it. And I think that's where being in sports media for almost a decade now, I get a little jaded, where I was for so long the way you were, and I've totally kind of flipped it a little bit, going, people worry so much about the purity and the sanctity, and this person deserves this, and that person deserves that.
Yeah.
The end of the day, and again, sports is my life. I don't turn it off. Like, that's a switch that's always on. There's a piece of masking tape right there. You can't put that switch down.
Yeah, right.
But it's about entertainment. Like, I want to be entertained. Like, if I'm going to spend time doing this rather than anything else, I want to be entertained. And that's got to be the most important thing. Yeah, it could be great, because I've seen Tyron Woodley. He deserved to win all those fights. But gosh darn it, the only one that was entertaining was when he knocked the guy out before he was champ. When he beat up, Josh Koscheck, or, that's, to me, when I look at that, it's like, yeah, it was great. You had a hell of a run. Good for you. But the most entertaining fight he's been in the last 10 years is when he got knocked out in Tampa by one of the Paul brothers. So that's, that's where the kind of the fine line when it comes to sports at. And it's going to even, I think, sway even more towards that direction now with people being able to get information so quickly and their attention spans going like this. Yeah. People are going to turn into a fight like that, and they're going to see a guy advancing position and doing this and that, and they're just gonna be like, all right,
stand him up.
You don't want it. You don't want to give. That's one thing that I've learned over the years is you never want to give a person a route off the highway, right? Don't give them a reason to turn your product off. And when you have too much of that, they know, like, those guys may be fantastic. It's true. But wrestling is one of those disciplines where, yes, you do control where the fight goes, but you are going to pay 10 times in a row for that Adesanya Pereira fight, because when they fight again, because damn well sure nobody's going to turn that off. Everybody's going to be like, oh, we know nobody's going to be shooting for a single leg. High crotch. That ain't happening.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, and no, you're absolutely correct. You brought up Jake Paul fighting Tyron Woodley. What do you think about these like YouTube boxing events or celebrity boxing events and what they do for the actual sport of boxing? Do you believe that the fans that watch those events actually translate to other boxing events?
No, I think it's totally different, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it too. Like, if you're going to go out and yourself promote, listen, those guys are pretty athletic dudes. Like, to act like they're just some like schlubs that are just like a local delivery driver that are just all fat. They're in shape. Like, you look at the job Logan Paul's done in the WWE. Like, he's pulling off some incredible moves. He did this buckshot lariat where he did a front flip over the rope into a clothesline. That's better than the guy that actually does it for a living, Adam Page in AEW. No disrespect to the Hangman, but listen, you got to give credit where credit is due. Listen, it's entertainment at the end of the day. I don't think it's taking anything away from boxing, because to me, boxing is one of the more flawed sports that we have in America, even though I love it, grew up on it. But I agree. Don't tell me that there's not something rigged in there, because you have some of these decisions. Like, look back, and I didn't have a dog in the fight, but look back at some of those fights. One of the biggest fights we've seen in the last decade was Triple G against Canelo.
Oh my God,
if you look at some of the scoring in those fights, even if you were kind of looking at one guy and thinking he won that fight, like, you watch some of these scorers and you're just like, how am I supposed to invest $79 to watch this when you know that they're not keeping it 100 right there?
Yeah.
And boxing, like, You don't fight anybody. Everybody's got these perfect records, and you don't know a lot of these guys. There's too many belts, right? Each weight class has 4 or 5 belts. How many unified champions? I think last time I checked, there was like 3. So yeah, you may know a Terrence Bud Crawford and Errol Spence, and we're trying to get those guys to fight, but the casual sports fan doesn't know them, which is terrible. We knew Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, but outside of that, it was like, all right, well, who's the next fight? Do you know Anthony Joshua? Kinda, but we know he's in England. Like, give me 5 boxers right now to the casual sports fan. I guarantee you, one of them is going to say Floyd Mayweather, right? He's been retired.
100%.
He's doing amateur fights, getting $30 million doing amateur fights, right?
Yeah.
Think about that.
Doing exhibitions.
Floyd's looking at the product right now going, you got to do all this stuff. You got to do fight camps. I'm making just as much, if not a little less, for just an exhibition. Why are people more tuned in to Jake Paul against Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul against, Ben Askren and some of these guys, Logan Paul against Floyd Mayweather? It's about entertainment. And I love boxing. I'm a boxing purist too. I think about how many 5 times Pacquiao and Marquez fought. I love those fights, but it's different. It's different. And these people, listen, you got to focus on yourself. If people are pissed that, they're taking away from the purity of boxing, you need to focus on what's going on in your own backyard. Because to me, there's not enough good things going on with boxing. There's not enough feel-good stories. There's not enough name recognition. I think they did a great job of getting it on ESPN and Fox and having all the networks work together, but not enough investment. Like, nobody knows who Vasily Lomachenko is. One of the best fighters in the world. Like,
and his career is on a downtrend at this point.
yeah,
Like,
think about it.
He missed the boat.
He lost to Teofimo Lopez, right?
Yeah.
And then look at Ryan Garcia. He's the next guy. Like, people know him from what? The social media.
Social media.
And the fast hands. But if he doesn't ever get to that point where he's like an undisputed pound for pound champion, they're going to miss the boat on that. There's not enough guys like a Ryan Garcia where people go, man, the sweet science of boxing. Because a lot of our parents and a lot of our uncles and aunts, in
That's
the
it.
early 90s and the late 80s,
all we
like, they
watched.
weren't missing the Mike Tyson
No.
fights. They weren't missing the Lennox Lewis fights.
Dude, my dad would let me stay
the
up
Trinidad fights. Think
all
about that,
night
man.
to
My dad
watch these
loved
boxing
Tito
matches
Trinidad.
with
Are
him.
you
Bro,
kidding me?
Tito Trinidad, are you crazy, bro? My mom.
Between Trinidad and Koto, you couldn't say nothing bad about
But
those
they
guys in
brought,
my house.
see what they did though? They brought a whole culture together, right?
Yeah,
That's the
facts.
thing. Is like, who's the big Puerto Rican fighter right now? Who's the big Dominican fighter? Who's the big Italian fighter? Like, that's how it was in the 80s and the 90s, where you could bring people together, generations from cultures together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And watch boxing.
Yep.
It's not the same right now.
Because it was pure.
Yeah,
was
exactly.
pure and
There-
it was,
maybe
you
there's
know.
little packs now, but it's not nearly like, think
No.
about that, man. When you had those fights in the mid to late 90s, like, people were going crazy.
Like Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward and those
Nuts.
wars.
There was no cherry picking of fights. The people,
No,
the
of course
people
not.
said
You had to fight the best.
You had to fight
Agreed.
the best.
You had
and
to.
and what you mentioned earlier, all these different organizations, it's impossible to follow for somebody to jump in. It's like how difficult is this barrier to entry to join to become a boxing fan? It's like, all right, Ryan Garcia is the champion at X, and there's so many different weight classes, right? And they're a couple, they're ounces apart or whatever.
WBA, WBO, IBF, super flyweight, middleweight, like,
Yeah, what? It's like
you take a shit and
It's
you're
too
2
much.
weight classes lower.
Yeah,
It's too much.
Oh, and you're fighting for a different organization.
Yeah,
it's
it's
like,
like-
dude, why are there so many belts? Like, let's figure this out. Let's fucking
That's
trim
the
the
problem.
fat. Let's fucking we have to consolidate.
When you need 3 guys in your entourage just to carry your belts,
Yeah.
like there's too many belts. Like, come on, like
They're not even all the same. Some of them are leather. Some of them get those spandex ones.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, the ones that are like elastic.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that's like the ringside belt or something, like the Ring Magazine belt or something.
I
It's
feel like
red,
some of
white,
them
and
look
blue.
like they're hanging from like one of the aisles in Gopare Foods. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is that for Bravo? Like, I love that.
I think they
this is
store
nice.
onions in those.
Like, I swear to God, that was hanging next to us a can of bacalao last week. I don't know. Leave it to the gringo to bring up bacalao on the program. You're welcome. Codfish,
But,
gotta love it.
That, right, saltfish. So I like what you're saying about the boxing and the purity and how it's lost at, because now what I'm starting to be concerned about is the purity being lost in MMA.
Yeah.
Did you see anything about the story with James Krause and that camp
I
down in
did.
Florida?
And listen, one thing that, let me tell you a quick story. In Tampa, we had the Buccaneers, right? And I wasn't hosting at the time, but this is when Antonio Brown came in, right?
Okay.
And we had Bruce Arians as the head coach at the time, and he just got an award from Billie Jean King from all the work that he did with women, because they have 2 women on the staff, and this is one of the most diverse coaching tree.
Billie
ever.
Jean King, former tennis player, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all the work that he did with women, they brought him in. You know, he got an award because of the inclusivity. Has 2 women on the staff, or had 2 women on the staff. You know, you had Byron Leftwich, Todd Bowles, Keith Armstrong, like all African American coaches. Like no other NFL team has that. Bruce Arians really does a lot, and I think, man, that's awesome. And then they talked about bringing Antonio Brown in. And I go, hi, I know I'm not a host yet, but isn't that kind of ass backwards that we just saw an Instagram video of this guy calling his wife all these names on an Instagram live video and being horribly demeaning to women? But now the Buccaneers want to sign him? Like, what, am I missing something right here? Like, this guy just got an award from Billie Jean King. So Deshaun Watson was another guy, right? This guy's the first guy to get $230 million guaranteed in the NFL. And you know of all the cases that he's obviously had to deal with in the last couple of months.
Sure.
So I really kind of had almost a come to Jesus meeting with like our listeners and also myself of we focus way too much on our athletes and the purity of sports and athletes. We gotta check that, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you can throw a ball, if you can shoot a ball, if you can punch somebody in the face, if you can put a puck in the back of the net, you're going to be forgiven for a whole hell of a lot more than the three of us.
Yep.
And to think that every single one of your athletes are going to be choir boys, not going to happen. Warren Sapp is a guy that we talk about a lot down in Tampa. Look at the things that he's done in his life. That's one of the best D tackles ever. And people look at him like he is an absolute saint. Because why? He's one of the best football players ever.
Yeah.
It's not opinion. It's fact. He's a Hall of Famer. Look at D tackles. Like people are looking at Aaron Donald now. It's like, who do you compare him to? Like the only guy you can really compare him to is Warren Sapp. But look at all the things he did off the field. People don't care about that stuff.
Nope.
And if you ask everybody in Tampa, to a man and a woman, was it worth it? You guys saw it. It happened in New Jersey. Antonio Brown taking off his shirt, going crazy. Look at that. That's like one of the worst things you've ever seen an athlete do to get kicked off the team. But if you ask everybody in Tampa, was it worth it? 100%. Why? Because it got him a Super Bowl. Winning is the only thing. Winning and entertainment are the only thing that matters. So, yeah, there's going to be crazy things like that, Justin, where you're going to question the purity of the sport. And you get a little jaded, right? You get a little jaded when it comes to sports like that because you see, unfortunately, more stories about Tim Donaghy and NBA, like doing things like that. Last night it happened with the Giants and the Commanders where Terry McLaurin was looking at the side judge going, am I good? And he said, you're good.
God,
yeah, you're good. And then he throws a flag 5 seconds later for an illegal formation. It's just, it gets you to start thinking. You know? Remember in 98 when McGuire was hitting all the home runs, Sosa was hitting all the home runs, and MLB was kind of turning the other way.
Yeah. I
always think about this in sports. What's going on right now behind the scenes in all sports that in 5 years from now we're going to go, damn, bro, I had no idea that was happening. Yeah. Because something's going on. That Krause thing, think it just started?
No.
Think about that. Like
absolutely
even small terms, right? Even small things where somebody gave a little bit of information here, or somebody gave somebody a heads up here. Like that stuff is prevalent.
Yeah.
You know it when they get caught. You think TJ's fight when against Cejudo was the first time he was on EPO?
Come on.
No, man. It definitely, you know, it for sure was not, because even his former teammates, like alpha male teammates, were like, yo, that guy's been on the shift like forever. Now, he wasn't on steroids.
Cody was saying that
still
years before that.
Yeah. Cody was saying it years before because people know. I mean, there's got to be more of that going on because if we're catching it, it's got to be more. Like if you look at with the James Krause thing now people, because of the James Krause, so just to let anybody know that's unfamiliar, James Krause is a coach down in Florida, and he has a number of fighters on his, in his stable that fight for professional organizations, one of which was a former champion in Brandon Moreno. So he has great fighters. He's a fighter himself. I think he might even still be active fighting. Uh-huh. He also does sports commentary contributions and breakdowns for ESPN and stuff. And, he started doing, which there were no regulations that restricted any UFC fighter trainer from betting on fights. So he wasn't doing anything illegal in terms of betting on fights. He started this Discord chat and was charging people $50 all the way up to $2,000 monthly for access to his picks. So he would go sometimes 15-2 on a fight card, something crazy. But now on November 5th, when one of his fighters was coming out there on the way to the cage, that dude dropped from like a plus 110 to like a plus 400 underdog on the way to the ring. And then he ends up going down in the first round with a leg injury and then gets ground and pounded out. So, that right there was what kind of pulled the curtain back a little bit. And now with the Paddy Pimblett decision, which he got a unanimous decision against Gordon, which Gordon kind of rode him the whole fight up against the cage, taking him down. Exactly. He wins a unanimous decision, and then you start to see these little clips of like people's reactions to the win, to the decision. Joe Rogan looking crazy. Dana White looking like he's shitting a brick when he's hanging with Portnoy and his boy.
Yeah, because that one wasn't as bad as the Sean O'Malley one. This was like really like, wait, what the fuck is going on? You could look at Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan and say, you know what? Maybe Sean did win that fight. This fight is, you watch it back and you're like, damn, how the fuck did they give this guy the, who's...
Yeah.
But,
So the short answer, yes.
Short answer, it's you got to start
Yes,
thinking.
I mean,
He's with Portnoy, and Portnoy just signed, Paddy Pimblett to a 7-figure deal with Barstool Sports. Portnoy and Dana White are super tight, and then you have this weird thing, and there's just a lot of weird things. I don't know if anything's intentional. I don't know if there's any kind of corruption, but what it does make you think is because of the James Krause thing, the curtain being pulled back on that, now it starts to make you question everything that seems weird.
He's not, I guarantee he's not the only one doing it.
No, absolutely not. He's not the only one doing it. It's just, I think he was the most successful and the most brash about it. He had spoke about it on the Ariel Helwani MMA Hour, like back in October, and explained the whole thing, how he bets. He's like, people pay me to take over their account and make their picks. He's like, I get paid to make their picks.
yeah, that's a huge thing now with online gambling becoming as big as it's been. It's in the last year, maybe even less than that, online gambling has like blown up. It's particularly here in New York. I know it's probably, big in other states as well, but it being like one of the only forms of gambling that we do have, look how big it is now that people have Twitter accounts where you get to pay to follow them and they give you picks. People have Discords, like you said, where there's Kyle Covers. Look how many YouTube videos are you watching where people are either promoting a gambling application or promoting somebody who sells picks.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. You got stake.com. They got Drake. They got Aiden Ross. They got all these fucking streamers.
Yeah.
They got everybody. It's really interesting. Drake's winning, $11 million on a roulette table. How much is that stake just giving him as much money as he wants to be able to gamble? And how much is that, the real deal?
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know.
No, it's crazy, and it introduces a dynamic because this is always kind of what corrupts sports, right? It's like one of the main demons that starts to taint sports is the gambling. Yeah. So, and Ariel Helwani, like you were saying, Ariel Helwani touched on that and saying that everybody's in too close of a proximity. He's like, you got people at the PI, the Performance Institute in Vegas. He's like, every fight camp on the card is there. They're all in and out of the facility. They're sharing space. They know people. They have the same nutritionist. They have the same doctor. Like everything overlaps. You're in the same room. Your hotel is your room is on the same floor. So you get to know things about other fighters. If you're a guy that's just the guy that, puts together the fight packs, like the fight gear, like you put the gloves in the bag.
That's actually I know that guy.
Yeah, see, so if you're one of those guys, I mean, you have access to everyone, and you're very unsuspecting. So whoever it is, I don't care if it's the person that's, cleaning the hotel rooms where the fighters always stay in Vegas. They're going to see if somebody's got extra ice, extra tape, if somebody's, wife is upset, somebody's kids are sick. They're going to get little drips and drabs of this information, and then if you put that out, you could sway the entire line.
Yeah, somebody's having a bad weight cut. You see them fucking moaning and groaning. It's like, damn, it's 3 days, not even 3 days before the fight, and you look like shit already.
Yeah. You see somebody deliver an 8-ball to John Jones's room, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You're like, damn, that's it?
Yeah. Holy shit.
He wants more.
I'm putting no money on Jones.
Get him a whole rack. Yeah, put your money on Jones. No?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Didn't he tell DC that? He was like, I was on like a 3-day bender of coke and I beat you up.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I was like, dude, but.
I hope he comes to heavyweight and still performs.
I think they have him already. Isn't he already booked to fight Ngannou?
That's just the worst weight class in the entire in the entire organization. It's so ass backwards. And I don't think it happened because of like the cherry picking of fights or putting fighters together. I think it just happened to happen. But like anybody gonna wait? I don't know if they're gonna. How long has it been that we've been waiting for John Jones to fight? Right now he comes to fight, and Francis doesn't want to fight. Francis wants more money.
Yeah. Well, Francis, I think, deserves more money because but. It is what it is. I mean, it's the most dangerous fight for Francis Ngannou, in my opinion, at heavyweight. Now that, he's pretty much cleared out the whole division with like 2 punches. So, but I do think that the heavyweight division is kind of shitty because it leaves too much room to be undisciplined. There's too many guys that are sloppy, out of shape. You can't do that at 155. You can't do that at 205. You can't do that at 180. Like, you're not going to see guys in the poor shape that some of these heavyweight fighters are, like, because you can't. You can't do that. You're not going to see a guy with a physique like Tuivasa that's in the 155 pound weight division. You just
Yeah, but
can't.
that's the problem though, because you have 207, right? 205.
205,
You get a pound over unless it's a
That's right.
title fight. So
Unless
in
it's a title
essence,
fight.
it's 207 to 265, 266.
True.
Unless it's a title fight. So you're gonna have that, right?
Yeah.
But all right, so what do you want? Weight classes from 205, 215? Because then you run into the same problem that boxing has.
No.
You have too many weight classes, right?
You're
So
right.
that's the problem. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yeah, you're right. The heavyweight division is not. And what happened was those guys all got old, right? Like Junior Dos Santos and those guys, Kane, they just got older, and that influx of young heavyweights just it didn't come up after that. And you see that in MMA. And I don't know if we really knew that was going to happen because, as we said before, MMA is still so young, so we don't know that there's ebbs and flows. You see that with the WWE. You see the ebbs and flows where in the 80s it was white hot, right?
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan was the man. And then in the early 90s, you had guys that were a dumpster, a Duke the Dumpster Drosy and Doink the Clown and guys like that. And the numbers were
Doink
going
and
down.
Dink.
And then what happened in the
Yeah.
late 90s? Stone Cold and The Rock and all those guys. And they came up and then wrestling was as hot as it's ever been. So there's certain things with entertainment, especially with things like WWE, MMA, where there's going to be peaks and valleys, whether it's in weight classes, whether it's going to be performers, whether it's going to be the general attention. That's why I'm very curious to see how the NFL is. The NFL's king, right?
Yeah.
What happens like 40 or 50 years from now, right? People are going to change. Like, it's still going to be super popular, but baseball was that way 40, 50 years ago. Like, is it going to change? Like, what is the impact of soccer in this country? People have been saying forever, it's the fastest growing sport in the world. And I think it was huge. Like, the World Cup really brought a lot of attention to the game. Like, you look at how many other people were tweeting or putting social media posts out that wouldn't tweet about soccer, like the LeBrons of the world. And like, they were getting behind Team USA. Like, that's so huge because there's kids that are watching that going, I want to be the next not Landon Donovan, but I want to be the next Christian Pulisic. I want to be the next Tyler Adams and next to, Robinson, all these guys. That's important. But what's it going to be like in 40, 50 years? Like, is soccer going to be like there? Like, is it going to be that serious? Or is it still going to be the NFL? I wonder, like, when we're about to leave this earth, like, is it still going to be the same pecking order when it comes to the big sports?
Yeah. Everything changes, and you look at
does.
One of the interesting things that I found, and one of the things I wrote down is the transition that players are making now when they leave the leagues. Right, they're transitioning to other avenues, but they're still in the limelight. There's a lot of guys who are starting their own podcast now, and they're on their own different show. Like, how big is this? We were talking about this earlier, and I wrote a couple of them down. You got like the DC and RC show. Even DC remaining as a commentator is like sick. Or the UFC allowing fighters to come back and commentate. I think that's great. You got the Shay Shay show or the Pivot podcast. Like, these are all athletes that come out.
Yeah,
they aren't playing, and they pivot to something else, and they are experts in these fields, right? Who else to hear from?
Than themselves. They're from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
You're right. And I think the big thing now is that athletes are looking at this, and we saw something down in Tampa yesterday with Gio Bernard not trying to answer a question or a video from, because he messed up on a fake punt, and he didn't talk, and people were kind of getting on the media, but then people were like, well, that's your job. These athletes, the main thing they want to do right now is, while they're still playing, is to be able to control their own narrative. Yeah. The guy that really, to me, kicked it off was Aaron Rodgers going on Pat McAfee once a week and being able to go on there and talk about ayahuasca and talking about all the things in the last 2 years. Like, that became must-see TV. Like, people still, to this day, they'll tune in. I think it's every Tuesday.
Pat McAfee show is great.
It's amazing. And I got a chance to meet him a couple years ago, and it was really super encouraging. And this is before, like, he hit that boom. And that interview with Aaron Rodgers, I think, really did change the game, because now people are going to go on these shows and they're going to go, I want to do my own podcast, or I want to do my own thing because I want to control my own narrative. Draymond Green does his own thing now. One of the best ones now is Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce, the brothers. Is that the Pivot one? There's a different name. You got to check it out. Jason Kelce with the Eagles, Travis Kelce of the Chiefs. Like, their podcast is just ridiculous. It's hilarious. It's so funny. But these are two guys at the best of their top of their profession. You're going to get more and more of these people doing it now. I think the UFC did a great job of having current fighters as in-studio analysts, because you're going to transition. And for all the athletes that talk smack about the media, like, the majority of the media members now are former athletes. So it is an avenue for these athletes to be able to make money. So I think it's really kind of BS when these athletes come out talking smack about the media, because one day you may get a paycheck from that. So you may say, oh, it's the big bad media, but be careful, because one day that's going to be the hand that's feeding you.
Yeah. What's the expression? You could either live. What the end of this the expression is like live long enough to see yourself become the
villain?
The villain.
Yeah, the villain,
It's
yeah.
like
Yeah,
yeah.
you can either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. I think something like that.
Yeah.
and
JJ
just-
Redick has a good one too.
Yeah, he's great.
I love JJ Redick, man. I think at this point has eclipsed his professional career as an actual player. I think with what he's been
He had
able
a
to
long
contribute,
career, man.
he did have a
Longest
long
career,
one.
I think. Longer career than anybody ever thought.
Yeah, for sure. And it was like, he was kind of a slow starter in the beginning out of Duke, like, because he was crushing in Duke.
Yeah, he was incredible. One of the best players ever.
Incredible. That catch and shoot off the screen was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to translate directly to the NBA. And it took years for that to happen.
Yeah, but he played for a long time. One of the
did
best.
play.
If you look up stats, one of the best first quarter scoring guards that we've ever seen. It's so crazy.
really.
Like the guy would score 12 in the first, and you get 5 the rest of the night. He'd be like, I'm averaging 17. I'm good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. His podcast is good. But the thing is, he's not afraid to say what's on
not.
his mind. He's not going to be on political BS, and that's the problem too. You get with some of these sports, and that's the big network thing too. Is like there is kind of like a politically driven type of thing where people aren't always honest, and they'll kind of like not hold their boys to the fire, but they'll hold people that they don't really know or don't jive with them, and that's where it kind of gets lost. Like I don't watch national TV coverage, and people go, "Oh, what do you watch in the morning?" I go, "Not anything on TV when it comes to sports, because everything like that is driven. There's a lot of that stuff is already written out beforehand, and they know what they're going to say. Like that's the one thing. If you turn on the radio every day at noon in Tampa, what I'm saying is what I say and what I believe in. Nobody's giving me any kind of narrative. Nobody's saying Jay used to say this about this about this. I may be the one person that you agree with, or I may really piss you off. I'm not going to do it on purpose, but that's just, I'm going to be true to myself. I'm Doug and Sue's kid. I don't care about anybody else.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that.
Like that's how I look at it.
Love that.
Like you're going to hate me for me. I'd rather somebody tell me to my face that they don't like me rather than somebody come to my face and say, I like you, and then go around the corner and say something else. Like those are the type of people that you want in your life, even your friends. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
100%.
want your friends to be able to tell you when you're messing up, not just like, hey, you're doing a great job. You have too many yes men, yes women in your life. You're not living.
No.
Because you're not trying to find a way to get better. And that's the problem with a lot of these, people on TV now, where I like the podcast because it's almost like people are going to give you your feedback instantaneously. That's the difference with the TV analysts is you're not really keeping it 100. You're not keeping it the same for everybody. And that's what I think drives people a little mad when you watch some of this stuff and people are like, why? It sounds like you're just saying it to say it.
Like,
And
you don't
you
believe that.
don't believe that.
Yeah.
But why would you want to?
Yeah.
Like, I've never gone on the air, not one day, and said something that I didn't fully believe with my whole heart and soul.
Yeah.
That's just who I am. And maybe that's part of the reason why, I'm at a certain point in my career and people will say, well, you got to be more edgy and you got to do this and you got to do that. I'm like, that's not me. Like, I'm going to be successful in my own lane and I'm going to advance at my own pace. Because I'm going to be who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not a shock jock. I'm not just going to say something to piss you off. I'm going to be honest and true to myself. And I try to spread good vibes. And like we said before, maybe that's not the most entertaining thing all the time. Maybe that's going to prevent me from making billions of dollars. But I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm going to be who I am because that's the only person I know who to be.
And that's longevity.
Yeah.
See, it's, it may be a slow start in the beginning because we have these discussions ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
should we do crazier stuff? I'm
Should
like,
we
maybe
go viral? Wouldn't we go viral
I'm
if
like,
we
man,
did?
yeah. Should we go vlog and do something crazy in the street? Like, nah, we're not going to go and do anything crazy like that because that may get us a big uptick in the short term. But I think in the long term, being true to who you are and just like being open. And one thing that we're not afraid to do or ashamed to do is admit we're wrong about something. If there's something that I come on here and say that I find out is completely untrue or something that I was misinformed about or something, I have no problem coming on and being like, listen, I got a little something to fix. Last week I said some crazy shit that's absolutely not true. Or, you know what I mean? Like that's perfectly fine. But, when you're true to yourself and you're true to, like you said, kind of the core of what you want to say and just trying to be who you are, then it's fine to make mistakes because it was my mistake. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a mistake that somebody gave to me to say.
Yeah, and it
You know?
also, I
So you
think
take ownership.
I agree with you 100%, and I think it's easier to be yourself, right? You don't have to play this character. I don't have to worry about coming on here and being somebody that I'm not or like acting a certain way if my day went bad and I'm unable to get into that character because this is me.
Yeah.
Facts.
People appreciate that too. I mean, and that's the one thing people are like, oh, don't you want to get in the TV? I love radio, man, because you get 3 hours and people know who I am. Like people, if you're on TV and let's say I work for a TV station in Tampa, I'm on for like 2.5, 3 minutes. You don't really know me really much at all. Like, what I'm going to talk about. But the radio's, it's so different because it's a throwback and you learn about my life. Like, my people know that my grandma listens every day and she's 85 and she's a big Mets fan. And my dad's an Islander fan. And my girlfriend's name is Stephanie. Like, people know that. Like,
Yeah.
we met a fan a couple weeks ago at the Bucks Rams game. And I was with my girlfriend, and the guy comes up, hey, man, I've been listening every day since you've been on for 8 years. Huge fan, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, this is my girlfriend. He's like, Stephanie, right? And I'm like,
that's sick.
and she was like, oh, my God, how do you know? I'm like, we talk about you. Like, and people
That's it.
like that. And that's the genuine thing about radio is you can bullshit anybody on TV, right? You really can, because in 30 seconds, the commercial's coming.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I can't bullshit you in minute 9 because in minute, 49, they're going to be like, wait. Didn't you just say that? Didn't you just say that? Like, that's not me. And like, that's one thing that you can say. You disagree with my opinion, you agree with my opinion, but one thing you can't say that it's not coming from my heart. It's not something that's real. And again, I'd rather be critiqued by something that's genuine coming out of my mouth rather than praise for something that I just pulled out of my ass.
Facts.
Man, I should put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
Should definitely
That would sell.
Some merch.
Can you cut that for me?
Yeah, bro.
That's a good one.
Don't worry.
Yeah, don't
Swizz.
worry, man. I'm here the whole time.
Put that together for him.
Yeah, I got you.
I love it.
Do the export.
Yeah.
Right?
Export.
Yeah.
Mark the tape.
Yeah, export.
Needs more snare in my headphones.
More snare.
Yeah.
Yo, turn my headphones up now.
Turn my
Right?
headphones up.
Super
Turn me
funny.
down.
Nah, I
But
got you.
yeah, man. I mean, in long form content is it takes a long time to develop and a long time for people to catch on to it. But I think it's super important for that exact reason.
Yeah.
You get to actually know somebody.
I wanted to get your opinion on something that we've spoken
Yeah,
about
sure.
on this podcast before. Essentially, not just one particular sport, but college sports and how the athletes that play for these schools, and none of them are compensated for playing. I was reading earlier that the NCAA is now looking into possibly compensating some of their players financially to play for their college ball. How do you feel about that? Do you think? I think the majority of people say they should be played because
Well, they do have the NIL, what's the name, image, and likeness, which is a thing that they put in about a year or two ago, where these people do have certain, I guess, sponsorships where around the, and there's still people that are like, I don't know if this is the right thing. I look at it going, the main thing, what is it? What movie is that? Was that movie Accepted? When he was like, all right, where do you go to college to get a good job? Like, and it was just like a weird dean that they had. It was an old comedian. I can't forget the name. Somebody out there know what I'm talking about. But that's the whole goal. Like, you want to go to college. Yeah, it's great for the college experience, but you want to go and then you want to either play professionally, you want to make money as you get older. And when you're looking at the NCAA, we talked about corruption. One of the most corrupt industries and entities in the world is the NCAA. It is a $1 billion corporation that makes money off of these kids, okay? And these kids don't see a dime of it. And that is a crock of crap, because you could be a concert pianist at 14 years old and get all that money. But if you want to be in the NCAA and you want to play basketball when you're 18, you don't get that money.
Yeah, and if you do make money, they
Sorry.
take away your
Yeah,
accolades.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes any sense at all, and that's why the NIL deal. Listen, there's some coaches out there that hate it because it's not going to be a level playing field. But there's got to be some type of conversation, because it's crazy. Like, you look at some of these kids, they could be an unbelievable athlete. They're going to be a first-round pick, and then they blow out their knee their senior year, and then they never play again. And it's, you put everything, you've invested everything. Your parents invested in college. You invested in the training. You invested all this because your kid had the talent. It wasn't like they were forcing him. Everybody looks at it like the negative side, the negative stories, the Todd Marinoviches of the world, where his dad was like a psycho in the 80s to get him to play quarterback, and he just flamed out because he just hated like life because his parents made him be an athlete. There's not every story's like that. Like, there are good stories of like people that go out there and like they're just really freaking good, and then they get hurt, and that's it. These kids deserve to get paid.
Yeah,
like, they're a part of the machine, the most important parts of the machine. Like, obviously the fans are huge, but the players are the ones that make this thing tick. So now you're starting to see these NIL, these name, image, and likeness deals, and social media. The advent of social media going with that is really going to help a lot of these athletes. Who was it? I forget, one of the quarterbacks recently bought suits for everybody. I want to say it was Bryce Young from Alabama, but somebody bought his entire team suits for like the national championship game or the SEC championship or a big game. Like, things like that, it could be a real positive. I can understand the negative for it. There's got to be some type of regulation, but to make that much money and to have the people that are putting their bodies and their lives on the line, and we see all the stuff with CTE and these guys getting hurt. They're literally taking years off their life. Now, I get the argument. People are saying, well, they sign up for that. I get that. but you only have one life to live, right?
Yeah.
This isn't a soap opera. Like, this is legit. Like, I get it, but it still sucks. Like, right? Like the fact that
sure.
you have to play a game to put money on your, to food on your table, but you're in essence cutting your life off and cutting off your quality of life. And you see these people that get these, they battle with CTE and they just change. Like, they're these great people. Rest in peace, my guy Vincent Jackson, who passed away a couple of years ago, and it happened right when we were on air, and I had to say it like on air when it happened. Vincent Jackson used to play for the Chargers, played for the Bucks, military guy that loved the military, did so much, and he just changed, bro. The last couple months of his life, he changed. CTE just did a number on him, and then he took his own life, and that shit hits you hard, bro. Like, you think about that, it's like that guy didn't, that dude changed because of CTE. So when you look back at these college athletes, like, you don't know how far along they'll be on that path. We got to find some way to be able to compensate these guys, because less than 1% of those guys are playing professionally. So let's set these guys up in a way. That's the thing we don't do enough of when it comes to a sport like football. It stands for not for long, NFL. Is like they do such a hard job of setting these guys up for success later on in their life. And they just it's so they get about that, man. They care very little about their athletes. It's just discard these guys. So especially for football, for the NCAA, these guys need to get paid. This is going to help them not just now, but in the long term, because who knows? Who knows if they'll be able to ever have a really fully functioning life into their 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yeah, and universities, they do that to their players. They do that to their students. They'll allow you to pay $60,000 a year to attend classes that make you an expert in basket weaving when they know that the average basket weaver only makes $30,000 a year. They'll allow you to do all of this, to pick up, follow your passion. What do you really want to do? It's like, I want to be a producer. It's like, all right, well, don't worry about learning how to use this software yet. Come over here. I want to teach you about
signal flow.
Yeah.
And we're going to help you mic up a drum set. It's like, wait, dude, what? So I agree. And I think if the NCAA was making no money, then it wouldn't be so bad.
Well, that was my other
But
point.
when they're making billions of dollars and the kids are getting no money and they can't even sell a jersey that has their last name on it, like that's why the image, the name, image, and likeness is big. So that, for if you don't know what name, image, and likeness is, that's like, being able to make money off of your name, off of your image, and off of your likeness. So prior to that deal, right, the players, that were playing college sports weren't able to you couldn't sell an autographed photograph of yourself. You couldn't, use your face on some kind of product promotion to get paid. You couldn't sell jerseys with your name on it. These were all things that the college, it was like signing a 360 deal as a musician. It's like you make no money and they make all the money off of everything you do.
Look at the video games. Look at the video games. Like, if you best video game maybe ever made was NCAA 2014, I think it was. And it was just all numbers. Right, that's it. You couldn't put the guy's name on it, which was kind of weird. And you're like, all right, well, I know 15 from the Gators is Tebow. Just put Tebow on there. But you couldn't do that because there was no NIL deal. But it's definitely a game changer. And the NCAA, especially with football, everything's going to change. Now, recently, they're going to come up with super conferences now. And the way that they're expanding the college football playoff, there's going to be 12 teams now. So it's a lot of money, and there's a lot of kind of moving parts to the NCAA, and this oil money down south, and you know what I mean. This is it's such a intricate. It's like DNA. There's so many different strands to that.
Yeah,
for sure.
You mentioned video games, and me and Justin have this conversation quite often about video games and esports and whether they're sports or not. And I don't even think we could argue about that, right? They're definitely sports, right, Swizz?
No, they're definitely not even close to a sport. Esports. Get out of here with that shit.
It's the way to do it. It's the way to get sports involved.
How much mental fortitude you have to play these games for the amount of hours that people put in. The people that are genuinely nice, that are genuinely good at it. I'm not talking about those hip dot shot guys and those wall hack guys. I'm talking about dudes like that really put in hours of effort. You know what I mean?
I don't
Carpal tunnel's a real thing.
I don't disagree with that.
Dude,
I don't disagree with that.
Masturbation is more of a sport.
It's athletic ability?
No.
Seriously.
If these guys masturbate enough people as the other people play games, then maybe.
Exactly.
I don't think I understood that.
I was trying to. Don't worry about it. We're gonna cut that out. I don't want to walk anybody
I
through
think
it.
it's a lane, right? It's because people look at wrestling too, and they go, "Well, it's not sports. Well, it's sports entertainment, right? Well, it's predetermined. Yeah, I get that.
I'll give
But
it
it's sports
sport.
entertainment. I think esports is of that. I think it's of that same ilk where it's its own lane. I think it's more game than sport, right? Like, because I look at chess and I think chess takes a lot of mental fortitude as well.
Exactly.
But I don't
I
think
like
chess
that.
is a sport; it's a game, right? I have a tough time like for some of these like race car driving, right? Do you think that's a sport? There's a lot of people like go around the track 200 miles an hour 500 times over there. Like that's totally taxing on your body. I think a lot of times we get so focused on the black and white of situations. Just because you don't think it's a sport doesn't mean you don't respect what these guys do and how good they are. Right?
True,
Think
which
that's
I
an
do
important
respect
thing.
the time.
They're big time, but I
and
think
the
it's
effort.
it's a lane, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's great that
Exactly.
there is that lane because now people can make money of it. I see kids like going in there coding, like so many kids are playing Roblox and coding as kids to set them up. So maybe one day they can become like a Call of Duty world champion. Like, look at all these, like, drone racing has become huge on ESPN. Like, that stuff is great.
Yeah.
The more things that you can get out there for people to be productive and to be able to function in society, I am all for it. I think we get so caught up, like, is it real? Is it fake? Is it a sport? Is it not? Like, I don't know, because like that's a debate you can have to the end of time. Like there's always going to be people that are going to say it's great, and it's a sport, and then you're always going to have people on the other side that's going to be like, screw that, not a chance.
Yo.
You're just a poser.
You know what the problem is? Justin's never played Dance Dance Revolution, and it shows.
I have played Dance Dance Revolution.
You were terrible at it.
Are you good at DDR?
Nah,
Oh, that's the same thing?
Trash.
I was like, I'm not a dentist.
See,
Isaac Yankem, DDS.
trash.
Yeah, no, I can't call that a sport. I think it's an insult to
you ever play
athletes
Guitar Hero?
everywhere.
You ever play Guitar Hero?
Yeah, I have.
On
I don't
hard?
know if this one's going to come up
On
as a good
hard?
argument.
Listen, are you about to tell me that Guitar Hero is a sport?
That's not what I'm saying.
That's what you're gonna tell me.
Have you ever played Guitar Hero on hard?
Yeah, and I'm terrible at it.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean it's a sport. I'm terrible at a lot of things.
No, it has nothing to do.
I can't basket
look,
weave.
But your brain probably fried and sizzled and melted when you try to play it on hard.
Him
There are
pointing
some
at me
people
doesn't
do
mean that I'm good at basket weaving either. Just wanted to say
No,
that.
I'm referring to your previous basket weaving statement about college.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day my opinion will change. But as it stands now, I can't sit there and call like a 117-pound kid playing a computer game an athlete when we're calling LeBron James an athlete. I can't do that.
Yeah, but a jockey's an athlete, and he's significantly smaller than LeBron James, too.
1,000%.
But he does something physical.
He rides a horse.
Yeah, which is hard to do. Just like I would call race car drivers, like NASCAR drivers, I call them athletes
They're definitely
because,
athletes.
gripping the wheel and holding the wheel like at 200 miles an hour, I can guarantee that guy can crush my hand with his grip from being able to do that kind of stuff. So
And you're talking about one form of racing because there's
Yeah.
time attack, road
Yeah.
racing,
Drag
F1,
racing.
drag racing. There's so many other
yeah,
different.
I would call that stuff,
Wait,
sports.
So you think a drag racer is an athlete?
Oh man, this is it's what you said.
This is a debate, yeah. I mean, and I think there's a spectrum of athlete as well.
Nah, get this guy in the lobby with us. You got to get in the lobby
You know?
with me and Berto one time so you can see what really goes down. I'll show you some work.
Bro,
It's-
you might have the quickest thumbs in the game.
show you some
But
work.
that
You see
shit
these
don't
guns?
make you an athlete, bro.
I'll show you some work.
You might have the quickest thumbs
Nah,
in the
man,
West.
because you got to understand it's precision, it's aiming, it's timing, it's
Hand-eye.
muscle memory, hand-eye
Dude, taking a
coordination.
piss takes aim.
No, it
okay?
doesn't. No,
You
it
gotta
doesn't.
aim.
Listen, bro, I could.
If
know
you can
what?
piss in the dark, you're more of an athlete than an esports player. Okay? If you
is
can
terrible
take an
that you feel this
accurate
way.
piss in the dark and not pee everywhere, I'll give you more precision than a lot of people.
Are you drunk or
out
not
here.
drunk?
If you're drunk, you're pissing on hard. You want to talk about
Yeah,
Screw Guitar Hero on hard. You ever pee when you're drunk in the dark? That's hard.
That's
That's
hard.
an athlete right
and
there.
when it sounds like it typically doesn't, you're losing the
screwed.
game.
You're like, are your eyes ever wider than when that happens? You're like, holy smokes.
You're like, whoa, and then you flip the
No,
light
you're
on,
good.
your pupils dilate, and it's even worse.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah. That's why I wear socks.
Yeah. I mean, we've had this talk multiple times.
We've had it.
on
So
here.
that's the only reason I'm not like going hard on defending the gamers. You guys know.
I'm
where I
not.
stand.
See, I don't want it to be that either. I'm not.
You
saying
might not want it to be.
I'm
that.
not. No, I'm not saying anything bad about gamers. I don't want people to be offended by what I'm saying. I'm just saying something that's factual. You're not an athlete, and that's not a sport.
Well, that's an opinion, right?
That is
It's
an opinion.
that's a fact.
That's an opinion.
That's why they call it an e-sport. If it didn't need that extra connotation in the beginning to let you know it's not a real sport, it's an e-sport. So if it was a real sport, they drop that e.
So-
they wouldn't have that e on there. Why do they have that on there?
I got a question.
Because they have to specify it because it's not a real sport. It's an e-sport.
Yeah, you know what? Justin's one of those guys that never believed Pinocchio was a real boy. 100%.
Well, I'll tell you what. He ain't have no strings to hold him down. And he's more of an athlete as well.
Yeah, I'm done with this guy.
His nose grows.
All right.
Pinocchio probably has dog shit aim, to be fair.
But maybe my opinion will change one day. Maybe somebody will, maybe they'll have some kind of, metaverse type of thing where you got some goggles on and you got to actually
VR?
do some. Yeah.
So what about like VR guys like that? What about drone flyer? People that fly drones.
FPV
that's
pilots?
not an athlete either.
Oh, no.
Guy stands in one position doing something. So you're telling me that guys that race remote control boats at Central Park are athletes?
Bro, you think LeBron James could do that? If we gave LeBron James
Yeah, I don't know.
remote,
I don't think you can go down that road. Because if you're gonna tell me you can't put two different sports against each other, because I've seen some of the best athletes ever in the world get up there on a mound and throw a baseball like a 9-year-old child.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I don't know if
Same.
you could necessarily
I've
say
seen 50
that.
Cent do the same thing.
Yeah, but he's
Yeah.
not an athlete, even though he got shot 9 times. So he's good.
Yeah, and no
I
matter
think
how
that-
diesel he is.
Yeah, he's definitely not,
Justin, I was waiting for Justin to go, yeah, but he's still more of an athlete than an e-gamer. I was waiting for
way
that.
more so.
Thought that was coming.
Way more
because
so.
he used to
He
pitch
respawned. He respawned, for Christ's sake.
Yo,
He got shot 9 times and respawned.
He's in the gulag.
50K back from the gulag.
Come on,
That's a
dude.
fact. 50K.
You got to get shot 9 times to be rich.
That's so funny.
yo.
Yeah. As somebody who played video games for a long time, there's like a I just think it's like competitive, right? And when
certainly
people are
is.
competing against each
Yeah.
other, like whether
That doesn't
you call
make
it
it a sport. No, there's a lot of ways to compete, and it's not a sport.
well, you could call it whatever you want, right? It's similar.
I
in
guess,
nature.
yeah. I mean, if you wanted to identify as a sport, you could do that.
Well, it's similar in nature, just like playing poker against somebody else.
Not a
is-
sport.
is competitive.
But it's not a sport.
And I mean, but there's some fucking stupid sports, right? I didn't want to get down
Of
this
course. Of course, there's some stupid sports, but
Yeah.
sports nonetheless.
But based on your criteria,
Mm-hmm.
your criteria is that they're like these people are like physical.
it's
they're
not my
strong,
criteria. It's
they're-
the definition of the word sport.
We went down this fucking hole. I'm not going to do it again
because it's a
Yeah,
goddamn
yeah.
definition.
No,
and part
no.
of the definition is an
But
activity.
you realize that words
a
evolve,
physical
right?
activity, where a person exerts themselves. It was like something that was clearly, it was like a physical activity where you compete. It's like, it was very specific that
Yeah.
you can't sit on your ass, stare at a screen and be an
But
athlete.
words evolve. That definition was written before esports existed.
It still exists.
An activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment.
Exactly.
yeah.
So
I love how you both said exactly. And you both
Exactly.
believe the opposite.
So you listen to what he said: physical exertion, hand cramps, dry eye. There's all different types.
There's
of
a reason why they hold those. You ever seen them when they're playing? They're holding those little the little packs.
God.
There's
Yeah.
a reason why they're holding those. Keep
Exactly.
their hands dry.
Exactly.
It's a very it gets wet in there.
Yeah. I mean, keep your hands dry all you want.
But
I
I've
mean,
seen
it's-
those in chess competitions as well. So.
It's not a. I've seen that in spelling bees.
So
Please.
Scripps' line? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, spelling bees are on ESPN, but for Christ's sake, I mean, it's not a sport.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you guys really want to fight for this thing.
No.
Yeah,
I
fight.
haven't said anything this whole
No, but you guys are trying to. You guys
Nope.
are peeling back the layers of the onion. You
Nope.
and Twiz.
Wait,
not
what?
Jay.
Listen, bro.
You guys are.
Bro, I was never
desperate.
wrong.
You guys.
I was
are
never wrong.
desperate
I was never
for video games to be a sport.
Dude, video games is a sport, and
I
listen,
don't need you to solidify. What video, you aren't the guy who defines sport. Like
No,
video
the
games.
dictionary does, which we just read.
But the dictionary just clearly stated that
You
playing video
physically
games could
exert
be-
yourself.
Who doesn't, bro? You've never played a last video game you played was Dig
true.
Dug.
You don't play
Get out of
video
here,
games.
bro.
Bro, if that was actually effective at physically exerting you, raising your, doing certain things, burning calories, the kind of things that physical exercise and activity and playing sports does, it would be recommended for you by your doctor. There would be cardiologists everywhere telling people play video games 1 hour a day and you'll improve your physical health and your physical ability and your fitness. This is like this is nonsense.
We looked
It
this
is
up
honest.
before, and they did. There is
Yep.
you do burn calories playing video games.
You burn calories sleeping.
and if we based everything,
You
off of
burn
those,
calories sleeping.
Exertion is the application of a force, influence, or quality. physical or mental effort.
Exactly, physical or mental.
And
effort.
I want you to know that I don't even
But
want to
it's
go down this any
specified
longer.
Physical exertion in the definition of sports.
Yeah, my man, is your brain a muscle or not?
No,
All right, cool.
your brain's not a muscle.
Yo, you know what? You're
Never
the kind.
said
You
that
know what,
one. I
Justin?
didn't
You're
say
the
that
kind of you're the kind of guy that gets up and has a steak for breakfast, and then you have a steak for lunch, and you have a steak for dinner.
He's calling you a man.
It's not true.
It's
not true at all.
Here's one for you, Justin.
Yes.
Is that I do feel like
'Cause I know I do
a
go
lot of
all in on
times-
this.
I feel like a lot of times when you have to sell the definition of something, therein lies some negative weight to your argument. Like if you have to continuously sell that something is a sport, just the fact that you have to defend it, in essence, lies some argument against it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I hear what you're saying. I totally. It
makes sense.
I hear what you're saying.
Yo, he just
but
told
it-
me in the nicest way I'm full of shit.
No, but
No.
it's like that.
We knew that.
in a lot of different aspects in life, where you
Yeah.
constantly feel like you have to defend something.
Yeah.
Then therein lies enough kind of argument against it where it may impede your argument.
I can agree with that. I mean, we got some comments in the chat here from a Schwanu. Tough to pronounce. Let me know. Like, throw me a phonetic spelling in there if you can. But he says, regardless if you consider them athletic or not, video games or whatever all take skill. And just because it is a video game does not mean it's an easier skill. Nobody said it's easy because I'm terrible at video games. I just got smoked today babysitting my friend's 9-year-old son. He smoked me in Call of Duty. He smoked me in every single game we tried to play. But that does not make it a sport. There's a lot of things that are difficult to do. Roofing is hard. Is it a sport? No. It takes skill to there's a lot of things that take.
I won't allow him to malign us any longer, Twiz.
Yeah.
See,
Enough is
you know,
enough.
Yeah, get this guy outta here.
I'm just stating things that if we sit back and look objectively, it's clear to anyone that that's not a sport.
You know what's clear? It's clear that Justin's never played Tekken 2. 1,000%.
I played Tekken many, many times, but that does not give me a black belt.
Nah, bro. You never let loose on somebody. You must have got washed up a lot, man. You never let loose one good time, whoop some ass with Law or Paul.
Bro, I was the
You know what
Mortal
I'm
Kombat champion. You know how many fatalities I got? Then I've been an athlete. I have been a top tier athlete my entire life. My entire life.
Street
I was
Fighter.
an athlete when I was still in elementary school. I was playing sports. I was playing sports.
You're probably
so I
playing
can't say
T-ball.
that. Yeah, I was playing baseball, basketball, all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but again, this is just my
Does playing baseball make you an athlete?
Sport.
It's a sport, yeah, but I think athlete also, there needs to be
You got to be kind of good, right?
there needs to be a certain level of commitment to it and stuff like that. You can't just, athlete is a very specific
Wait.
word.
Level of commitment, or do you have to be good at it? Because I could commit to something every day and still be trash.
I think it's both.
Do I
I
wear the
think it's both.
jersey?
It's both.
Can
I
I
think
just
it's
wear the
both.
jersey?
Wait,
definitely not.
do I have to be signed?
No,
No, because
to be
that's
an
a
athlete,
professional
no.
athlete. You can be an
Okay,
you can be an amateur athlete.
Yeah, you can be an amateur athlete. You can be, I mean, like I would say, like the stay-at-home mom that jogs 6 miles a day is an athlete. She's an athlete.
Well, she's athletic.
Jogs 6 miles a day?
Yeah,
Jogs.
I think that's athletic.
I
Well,
think she's athletic. I think if
maybe
she
not
runs,
an athlete,
I
you're
think
right.
if she runs like 5Ks in a marathon,
Then
and
she's
things
an
like that. I
athlete.
think she's an athlete.
Yeah.
I think if you played
There
at
needs
the
to be some
level,
competition.
I think if you played like travel baseball as a kid growing up, like at that time, I think you were an athlete.
True.
Because you were playing at the highest level that you could play in that moment, and I think at that time you were more than just being athletic. You were playing in a group setting. You were playing against other people that were at the top of the profession, but at the top of that game at that time. So I think you could consider yourself an amateur
True.
athlete at that time.
Wait,
True.
so am I an amateur athlete? I've run several 5Ks leisurely.
Good for you. Yeah, I think so. You're an amateur runner. There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, nah. I mean,
I get paid
good
to
for
run.
you.
I only run my mouth and I get paid for it. That's my only plan. I don't run at all. I'm running to the
Yeah.
buffet and to my bed. That is it.
Yeah, buffets are nice.
I love buffets.
Yeah,
I
buffets are
haven't been
great.
to a good buffet in a hot minute.
I just went to
been
an
one in a
Indian
minute.
buffet last Friday.
Check
That's
it
right,
out.
you did. Still recovering.
Tiki
Yeah.
masala right there,
Yo,
kid.
that shit was
Yo, that
delicious,
tikka
bro.
masala be kicking, boy. Stop
You know, it's
playing.
mad funny. So I went
butter
there
chicken.
with a couple of my co-workers. Some of them are Indian, and they're like explaining to me what everything is. So I'm like putting, of course, my Spanish ass. I put mad rice on my plate. First thing, I put mad rice on my plate, and then I'm like,
You're so
I'm like,
funny. You
They
go
looked
to
at
any
you like-
cultural restaurant, and the first thing you do is order Spanish food. Where were we when you ordered some maduros? I was like, dude, we're at we're at Carrabba's.
No, I asked, we're at an Italian restaurant. I asked if they had rice. Anyways, So
That's what it was. That's right.
yeah, so I get the rice.
I'm like, sir,
There's like lentils
gnocchi.
there. I'm like, lentils. Yeah, I know. They were like, rice. They're like, no, we don't have it. He like
is that like little pasta?
yeah, he's like, no, there's no rice. But so I got the rice, and I seen some beans. I was like, oh shit, they got beans here too. And he was like, nah, those are lentils. They just put them over my rice. He was like, no, you're not.
We don't
supposed
do
to
that
eat
here.
those like that. But okay. And
He's
then
like, yeah, these things are separate, but when you put them together, it's arroz con gandules. You know?
yeah,
Instead of giving you one of these.
Bro, I started putting all the food together. I ate it, and they were like, so what'd you think? Like, I was like, it was delicious. I'm like, what was your favorite? I was like, bro, I just kind of ate everything together.
They're like,
So it was all good.
they look down on you though.
And they're like, dude, you serious? You just dumped it all in the middle? Good Lord.
Yeah, I thought that was the thing. I thought I was like, I grabbed the naan, and I was just like putting everything in there. I had like a naan.
You're like,
burrito.
yo, this taco is bomb.
Yeah.
He's like, yo, this crunch wrap I just made is fire.
Naan is
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh my god, I didn't know there were all these different kinds of naan.
Yeah.
like
Yo,
flavors.
You get
Yeah.
the garlic
I
naan?
thought it was only
Garlic
all
naan
OG,
is
like
the
the
way to
regular
go.
one. They had the chili garlic,
Mm-hmm.
the garlic one. There's like another one with onions inside
Mm-hmm.
that's delicious.
Facts.
Oh man,
Yeah, nah, it's good stuff, man. It's
Indian
naan
food's
is
delicious.
good.
Yeah,
Naan
they're
is
trying to
good,
put
man.
people on. A lot of people aren't on Indian food. Indian food
Scares
kicks.
people.
Yeah, it does.
That
A lot
butter
of-
chicken is banging. Though.
Yo, bro, butter
love
chicken.
butter chicken.
You do
Yo.
have to go all the way to Nassau for good Indian food. though.
Hicksville. Gotta hit up Hicksville to
yeah,
get the good,
you know.
good Indian food. I'm not super into lamb on the bone. I like that fucking mystery meat they shave off the fucking thing at the halal spot.
Yeah.
But lamb on the bone, for whatever reason, I'd eat it. If I went to your house and you served me it, I'd eat it. But I'm not a huge fan of like dark lamb meat.
You don't like
Lamb chops are all right.
Yeah, I was about to say lamb chops.
They're different. There's a lot of people who like pork chops that don't eat pernil.
Yeah, that's true.
It is different.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
It is different.
How many people just eat salmon, but they wouldn't touch, flounder or fluke?
I'm definitely one of those people where somebody tells me that they'll eat pork chops and not pernil. I'm like, because you haven't tried it.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I've tried it. I'm like, no, you haven't. I'm gonna give you some. And you'll see that you're wrong.
Justin was shaming me the other day.
Come on, about what?
My daughter was eating one of her favorite meals,
Oh yeah, true.
chicken feet soup.
Yeah. So Berto's feeding his daughter this third world shit when we don't need to be doing that.
And Justin's like, we live in America. You're doing all right. You don't got to give your kid that shit. And I was like, well, she likes it. And like, I'm telling you, my kid could fucking clear a coop. She must have had like,
She's a coyote.
Yeah,
She's like part coyote.
she had like, there was like the remnants of like 20 chicken feet like on the table when I was talking to Justin. And I was so proud of her. I'm like, oh man, my daughter's going in right now with the chicken feet. We like pride ourselves on like, trying to feed her very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And feeding her, staying true to her cultural roots and feeding her what people eat from that culture. And it's like
Yeah.
legit. I love that and respect it. But I also feel bad that there's, better parts of the chicken that we can give her.
yeah, between me and you, we're giving her, we're raising her in the 9 ancestral habits.
I was about to say,
Sentence.
couldn't throw her the leg.
She just
Chicken
did
breast
the barbarian
Who's eating
yesterday.
the breast in this house?
Yeah,
Father eats the liver and the breast.
and she's but
See
just
Berto's in the corner chomping on the leg.
yeah, you see me.
Don't touch that. You
Yeah.
get the feet, young lady.
Yeah, I haven't washed my hair in years. But yeah, Justin was shaming me about it. And,
I wasn't shaming you.
in
I
all
was making
fairness,
jokes, just like I am now. Please, nobody be offended by what I'm saying. I'm joking.
I once shamed you for eating venison. So
You did. And
I-
I bounced that same joke back at you because that's what you told me.
Yeah, it
You say,
was-
you ain't got to eat that venison crap. You know that you could eat. He's like, that you could eat chicken. It's not only for royalty anymore. Like you
Yeah.
can have chicken and regular meat.
It's like newsflash. You go to the store, get yourself a nice steak.
Yeah. But I used to get them from somebody I worked with. They just
Yeah.
used to pop up and give me like different types of venison, like venison for like stew chunks, venison fillets, and shit was good, man.
It must be delicious because nobody does that with fillets.
Nobody does what?
Like gives out like steak, but also nobody
Well,
slaughters their own cows.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, I mean, when you have to give it away after a hunt. Like if you've ever had somebody that bring home a deer, dude, it's so much meat that you have to give some away or it'll just go
it's
bad.
in the freezer for months.
Yeah, if you even have the storage space in the freezer, you need to have like a trunk freezer to fit that stuff in there.
Back
Yeah, I'm
in the
not
day,
eating
Long
that.
Island used to have a bunch of crabs. We used to cook crab, and we catch so many crabs.
Fact.
We have
Yeah.
to give them away to the
You
neighbors.
have to give them away, man. They'll end up going bad.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 136.
Yeah, we 130. All right, yeah, we're gonna wrap
Let's
this.
do one
Jay
more
has-
topic. You want to do one more topic? We got another one. We'll go one more topic, 'cause then I got to go.
let me
'cause
see.
I want to have a girlfriend.
Yeah,
All right,
of
yeah,
course.
no, and Stephanie, please, I'm
We love
sorry.
you, Steph.
You know, we definitely
We're
love you
sorry.
for letting us borrow him for this long.
Yeah, and
But
we
this
appreciate it.
this is the guy. Do you want to ask him about the only WNBA trade to ever make headlines?
Oh God, the BG.
Yeah.
We could do that.
We could do that if you want.
Oh,
You
unless
know?
you want to talk about somebody else.
What else you
Okay.
got? You got
Something
something else?
I had World Cup stuff.
Yeah. Let's do
Oh,
that.
okay, let's do it.
What do you got?
Okay, World Cup, Argentina wins. One of the. I'm not a huge soccer fan. I do keep up when the World Cup's coming around, so I guess I'm a little bit beneath casual.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that.
I thought it was an excellent game. Messi's alleged last World Cup. What do you think about? Were you going for Argentina when you were watching it?
Yeah, I've been a long time Ronaldo supporter. I've always been on the CR7 side of the debate. But I love storylines, man, and I just love to see the cream rise. Obviously, Castro's everything around me. Cream rises to the top. Shout out to the Macho Man.
Oh, that's fire. I love that.
But when you have Kylian Mbappe, and we talked about storylines before, right? I mean, you had arguably one of the top 5 players of all time in Lionel Messi against Kylian Mbappe, who right now to me is the best player in the world. So I thought the storyline was great. I thought the winner was the fans, like to watch
Yeah.
that and to see Messi score 2 and Mbappe score 3. Just thought it was perfect. Like storybooks, like there's going to be movies written about that game. So I was just kind of a fan. Just I wanted to be the prisoner of the moment, getting the high. I was like about to cry, like at the end. I didn't care like that Argentina won, but that's sports, man. You see how many grown ass people were like crying, like they couldn't even hold themselves up. Like Argentina hasn't won since '86. They've come so close. They lost in the final a couple of years ago, but Messi is just the guy that does it all right. And I just thought it was like the perfect storybook ending to the World Cup. This is the best World Cup in my lifetime. I'm a big soccer fan, 37 years young, and clearly the best. So many good games. The U.S. was good, and they were competitive. England, like all the big names were there, big storylines. There were a bunch of PK shootouts, and the way it ended in the shootout with Messi and Mbappe, and who I think is one of the more underrated players in the whole world, Emiliano Martinez, the goaltender. He's fantastic. So I thought it was great.
And what do you think about? Do you believe that this is truly Messi's last World Cup? Do you think? Because I mean, when you look at the way athletes are kind of getting older and older and older, and soccer traditionally, historically, they age a little more than other sports, right?
Just so much running.
Yeah. Do you think that? Do you think in 3 years they say to him, "Well, next year we're going to the States"? You want to really,
Well, he's going to play. It looks like he's going to eventually go to Inter Miami and play for David Beckham in Florida, so that'll be good. It's going to be tough for him to say no because now he's just committed to continue to play with the national team because he wants that kind of victory tour, and letting everybody know, like, hey, we're the world champs. Like you wear that for the rest of your life, but you really wear it the next 4 years.
Yeah, for
going maybe
sure.
with the best team in the world.
You come in defending
So,
champions.
Yeah,
next
exactly,
time,
which is huge. I mean, that's what France was. France wins that World Cup. I mean, we're having talk of like this is the best era of soccer we've ever seen. And mind you, they had 2 of their best players in the midfield with N'Golo Kante and Paul Pogba not playing. They had Karim Benzema, who was their best striker, not in there because Olivier Giroud, or he wasn't in there, and then Olivier Giroud stepped in and did a great job. But I wouldn't, like, going into the World Cup, I'm like, no way, he's done.
Yeah.
But now that he's saying that, like, he's still playing, like, if he's still playing for the national team in 2 years, I think he will end up playing because it's going to be easier. Like, it's on this side of the world, right? And it's going to be in all over North America, multiple cities in Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. And if he's playing for Inter Miami, he's probably going to have a place down there, right? It'll be easier for him. And is he going to play as much as he did now or in this past World Cup? I don't think so. But I always look at it like this. I think we're all blessed to be able to say we were alive in the era of such dominance of having to like soccer's crazy when you think about it. Like if you're a real fan, like you have Pele and Maradona at the same time for the most part. You have Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi at the same time. Like those are the 4 of the 5 best players of all time. And then it could be Cruyff or Zidane or anybody else, Beckenbauer, anybody for that 5th spot. But those are the 4 best. And they were around pretty much. We got to see Messi and Ronaldo together, which is mind-blowing. And again, I bought a Cristiano Ronaldo jersey 5 minutes after he signed with Manchester United. And, best 170 I ever bought because I think one day it'll go for thousands of dollars. But I think what happened in the last 6 months definitely changed our legacy. I've been Ronaldo steadfast, best of all time, but Messi won it. Like he scored a goal in every knockout game, right? He scored a goal in every one of those games and 2 in the final. Ballon d'Or, he's probably going to win his 8th, so best player in the world. He's got club success at Barcelona, now Argentina, won all the stuff with Argentina here in this side of the earth in the Western Hemisphere, and now the World Cup. Like, you can't take that away from him. I know Pele's got 3. I get that. This is a different world, though.
Yeah.
He didn't go and have the success, and I know, Pele did his stuff with the Cosmos, but to be able to go and have the success that Messi had with Barcelona, like Steve Kerr's taking what they call, I think it's taka-taka or tiki-taka. The way that they would pass the ball at Barcelona was just so mind-blowing. I mean, it made soccer fun for the casual fan or the less than casual fan.
Yeah.
And now Steve Kerr is like, hey, this is what we need to do. And Draymond Green and Klay Thompson are like, did you see Barcelona like 10 years ago? Like, yeah, dude, like they beat the dog shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
And Messi was right in the middle. And Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, and all these guys. And it was just, choom, choom, choom. And when Gerard Piqué wasn't hanging out with Shakira, he was standing in the back going, I'm one of the best. Even though he really didn't have to do much. He was just chilling. But I mean, who had a better gig than him?
Yeah.
Like, you're just kind of sitting there while your team's whooping everybody's ass, and then you're married to Shakira.
Yeah.
So God bless you.
Yeah,
far
God
as
bless
that.
you, man. You know, I hope he's ready to go visit her when she goes up top for all
They
that
broke
tax
up now,
evasion.
so.
I hope she doesn't go away for tax evasion. She was in the Bahamas that whole time.
Steph's cousin, Shakira.
Really?
Yeah, so see if we get married, see if we can invite her.
Listen,
You
man,
tell her
those
we've
hips
been a
don't
support-
lie.
you tell her we've
she
been
ain't the
supporting
only
her.
one. She
Hips
ain't the
don't
only
lie.
one who got these hips that don't lie. You know
Hips
what I'm
don't
saying?
lie.
You tell her we've been supporting her through this trial.
We have been.
100%.
100%.
The World Cup has been great, and I just think it's important to, especially with the U.S., man, I thought it was great that we had a good run. And if they didn't win that last game against Iran, it would have been a real damper on the World Cup because people were like, damn, I thought we were better. But now it's going to come home in 4 years. And we have some really, really good players. I watched Premier League. That's my thing. Big Manchester United fan. And I watched Tyler Adams and I watched Josh Sargent. I watched Anthony Robinson and Tim Ream and all these guys that are Americans. It's like, it wasn't like that 5 years ago, man, when I was watching soccer in England. You didn't see any American. Like, you saw one. You saw Landon Donovan. You saw Clint Dempsey. Now you're seeing Christian Pulisic. That's good. I mean, that's what you want to see. And, people always like, oh, yeah, well, if we had LeBron James and I think that's a fair question. Like, it's not as popular in this country because it's more about buildup. It's more about patience. And our world in America is going totally different. We want things to microwave. If 30 seconds is too long, we want it in 25 and 20. And soccer's not like that. People appreciate 1-1 ties because the people leave it all on the field and leave it all on the pitch. And we don't see that. We don't see about processes. We see results. So that's going to be a very interesting kind of like how everything's going to change. I'm excited, though. I think we're getting better. But, yeah, I always go back to that. Like, what if we had LeBron James at center back? What if we had Kevin Durant in goal? But with that being said, the best player we just talked about is 5'5" and 5'6". So who's to say that the best player wouldn't have been Dustin Pedroia or somebody like right? Like, who's to say? Like, Lionel Messi could walk into this room and we're like, who's this guy?
Yeah,
that guy's touched from God, pretty much, right? Like one of the best athletes we've ever seen.
And we've seen athletes conquer different professional endeavors. Who's to say like it can't go the other direction with some of these soccer players going? And if they would have been living over here, could have been basketball players or football players or this or that. It could go in any direction. And I don't think soccer is like one of those like. I don't look at soccer, and I'm an outsider, so I this could be false, but I don't look at it as one of those sports where you got to leave on top. Jerome Bettis wins the Super Bowl, got to go. That's it. Even if you could play another year, probably shouldn't choose to leave on top. You think soccer is one of those things where if Messi does get the opportunity to play again, that he says that he should say, you know what, I won my last World Cup. I don't want to go and play another one and possibly lose it.
Well, it's different is because that guys have their club and they have their country. So that's the total difference with them is that there's such an onus on representing your country. We don't have that here. Like we're starting to see it maybe with the World Baseball Classic and baseball a little bit where guys like Bryce Harper and Mike Trout are like, yeah, I want to go play for America. But it wasn't right off the bat. Like they built in international breaks during your season so you can go back to your country and play for your country. Like we would never do that over here. Imagine that. In the middle of the NBA season, it was like, all right, we'll be back. Giannis has to go to Greece and play for Greece.
Never.
We'd never see that happen.
They'd be like, go over there and stay over there. Don't come back.
But you'd also
they're like, actually, you can't leave. You belong to us. You signed a contract.
But you also see that, though. You see guys a little bit in the NBA where like Luka, when he goes to Slovenia, like it means a lot to him. It really does. Like he even said it. He's like, it means more to me to win a gold medal than it would be to win an NBA championship. Yeah. We say that like we're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But in soccer, it's like that pretty much for majority of players. Like, yeah, bro, you're telling me I could win the World Cup? I don't care if we win the Champions League final with Manchester United. And I get that. But there's something nice about this. Something about talk about the purity. Something about the purity of representing your family and representing your country that soccer has that ingrained in them. Like it really does. Like we feel that sense of pride every 4 years. We don't really care about that. That's how it is for them every single day of their lives.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we go do that. But Messi, like, it's different there. So internationally, he may stop playing, But for his club, he's going to play for, now he plays for PSG, getting paid out of the wazoo. He'll probably go into Inter Miami, be the highest paid player, go on a tour around the U.S., play every MLS team, get showered with love and adoration, score a bunch of goals, and get tons of money in endorsement. David Beckham's there. Like, it's a great story for him. Soccer's so different than every other sport because guys don't go out on top. They just go play for lesser divisions. Or they'll go play for lesser teams. So a guy will go play, like Cristiano has maybe a deal in Saudi Arabia. I know there's players that go play in China. Or they'll just go play for somewhere else. They'll go play for their home country and maybe not in the top division. They'll go play for the second division. Like there's a big thing of Cristiano going back and playing for Sporting or in Lisbon, where he's from, in Portugal. That's finish out the career with the team you came up with. There's a nice kind of like circle type of like everything comes full circle with soccer players. It really is nice. It's a journey. Like I think there's so much you can take from soccer that we can do in other sports. Like these kids get into these academies when they're 9, 10, 11 years old, and that's where they go to school. Like you become Manchester United, right? And it's great because they're on the path, right? We talk about going by the wayside and doing a lot of crap and messing up your life. Like these guys get into these academies, they go to school every day, they become productive members of society, they become professional athletes, and then after, they're in the media or they do these other jobs. Like we could really learn something from this country where it's like, you got to go to high school, you got to do this, and that's part of the reason I think that we're behind, right? You go to high school, you go to college. Like, what was it? Brendan Aronson was like, I'm going to high school, going to college. No, I'm going to the MLS, and I'm going to go overseas. Like that, if that's what we want to be, like our best players need to be pushing the 25-year-olds at 18, 19 years old, because that's what everybody else is doing. One of the most impressive players I saw all World Cup wrong was a kid, I think it was Gavi or Pedri, two guys. They were like 19 for Spain. Like, damn, bro, you play for Spain. They got people out of the freaking wazoo that are just incredible, and Gavi's like 18, balding. Like, damn, we're about to see that guy for 20 years, right? Like, think about that. They would say that about Piqué and Sergio Busquets, who was 36, 37. He's been doing this since he was like 19. Like, we don't see that in America. Like, now we are. But that's what we have to get. We have to get, and it's weird. Like, that's weird. Hey, you're 17. Go to England.
How old was Cristiano Ronaldo when he started playing? He was very young.
He was young. Like, he was 18, 19. He was in his early 20s when he got to, just think about it, he had such a long career at Manchester United. Then left, went to Real Madrid, went to Juventus, and then now going back to Man U, and who knows where he's going now, but he's, 37 years old? Long career, making millions, more Instagram followers than anybody on the planet. Yeah. Like, it's crazy, but soccer set him up in the right path. I wonder if something like that will ever happen here, but our academies aren't strong enough yet.
I mean, we saw it with one athlete that everybody thought his dad was crazy, right? LaMelo Ball.
I was thinking about him.
He skipped the draft entirely, and he went, what did he play for? Turkey, I think, right? He went and played overseas professionally right out of high school.
You're seeing more basketball players do that now.
Yeah. When his, everybody was like, his dad is crazy, he's ruining his life. And it's like, the kid wanted to go pro, but didn't want to go into the NBA draft yet. They felt he may not have been ready or what have you. He went overseas, came back, and was a murderer when he got back here.
Yeah.
From like kind of cutting his teeth over there with grown men, playing at that elite level, but also not with the same kind of pressures and things that come with the NBA.
Something happened there, though, too, because he was so vocal and so boisterous, and then he just dropped off. And that was my big thing, was LeVar was spouting all that stuff, and I said, man, this guy's doing a great job of getting attention to his kid, but he's gonna hinder him if he doesn't stop when he gets to the pros.
Yeah.
And that's what he's done. Yeah. So I can't really fault LeVar because he brought all the attention to his boys. He got LiAngelo, all that stuff, because LiAngelo obviously was the worst one, but it still got him some, he played some G League, got some preseason action.
Yeah.
Lonzo did go to UCLA for that 1 year. LaMelo went the other pass, because you're seeing that a lot from the NBA. You're seeing a lot of these guys that can't make the jump. Instead of going to college for 1 year, they'll go to the G League or they'll go overseas for a year. That's why I think basketball should be like football or baseball. Either go, or not football, but baseball. That's the thing the NBA should do. You can go right out of high school. That's fine. But if you don't go out of high school, you got to wait 2 years. Right?
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
You can't tell these kids at 18 that you can go fight for our country, but you can't go represent yourself in the NBA. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But if you don't think physically that you're going to be able to handle it at 18, then you're probably not going to be able to do it at 19. Don't ruin it. Like, it would, just think about it. You're telling me no Kobe, no LeBron, no KG?
Yeah.
Think about that.
Because they all came out of high school.
Yeah.
Like,
All
those guys were crazy.
No Sean Kemp.
Yeah, but think about the guy. Like, listen, there's a lot of guys that they were in and out, and they weren't great. I get that.
Yeah.
But those are no doubters. Like, nobody was saying, look, LeBron should go to Ohio State. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No. It was like, dude, you were the most high-profile athlete that we've ever seen. ever. Like honestly, I was never a LeBron guy. Still, I don't necessarily jive with some of the things he does, the way he acts. But to think about the guy he was the first social media athlete. He was the first guy that had the covers of everything. And he became a champion. And whether you like him or not, the guy built a school. So, I mean, like, that to me, like, I look at that and I go, bro, you made lives better. I say it before we started. For sure. Like, LeBron made such a huge positive impact on people outside of just his own circle.
100%.
That whether you like him or dislike him, or whether you think he could have played in the 80s or not, that's things you can never take away from him. Yeah. Like, I'll always be, like, I hated MJ growing up, man. I was a Knicks fan, diehard, still to this day. I couldn't stand MJ. I hated Space Jam. He could kiss my ass. Right?
As a Knicks fan, he broke our hearts every year.
Still, best basketball player I've ever seen. There was just a cutthroat effort about him. Like, there was nothing. Like, he would even a odd number on my phone. He would play that game with you 100 times till he could beat you 51 out of 100, right? Like, there's an underlying competitive, and that's why I think part of the reason why people value Kobe so much. I think people, and I loved Kobe because I felt like when Kobe was with the Lakers, that second run with Lamar Odom and Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum and those guys, I love watching them because I felt like I got some of my childhood back from Jordan whooping my ass because I didn't have a team. The Knicks sucked so bad. I was up late from work and I get to watch them. But the thing that I think people overvalue Kobe a little bit because they were like, we see the dog. We see the MJ dog in him. Yeah. But they also kind of like go to the side of some of the games where he didn't pass to people and he wasn't the greatest teammate and stuff like that. But it's just like, we love Kobe, and that's to me is there's so many different levels of greatness and we always compare people to we live in a comparative society. That's what's tough. You always want to compare your last girlfriend to your new girlfriend, your last job to this job, the Indian place that you went to eat and the Carrabba's rice that you didn't order, right? Like you're always comparing things in life. And that's why sports is so great, is because you can compare Ronaldo to Messi. You can compare MJ to Kobe.
It forces the apples to apples.
It does because you find the things that, make people the same and make people different. Like one of the athletes that I love talking about is a guy like Kevin Durant. It's like, I think he's one of the he's such an anomaly. He really is. He's one of the best shooters of all time. But he makes it so hard for you to like him in a weird way. Like he makes burner accounts on Twitter and he comes out and he says these weird things and it's just like, just go beat one of the best basketball players we've ever seen. It's weird. Yeah. We have so many different athletes now that they say things and it's almost like, just go let your play do the talking. And that's where we go back to like these guys controlling their narrative. Sometimes I think it's better for athletes to kind of just let it be. Like, why do you care? Like we talked about this before about not responding to trolls. Like, why is Kevin Durant, he's got more money than you and the three of us will ever see. Why do you care what people say on Twitter about you? Like, I don't understand that. Like,
you stop in the middle of a game and argue with a fan in the third row.
Because the bar's higher now, right? It's not, you don't just have to be a great basketball player.
But you could. I think the thing is people get sucked into everything else. If you're a great basketball player, you don't have to do as much extracurricular fan interaction as Kevin Durant does. I don't know if it's an ego thing. He's got this chip on his shoulder for life, it seems. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if he feels he's not LeBron. Why am I not received like LeBron? I don't know what it is, if it's an inferiority thing, because he's an incredible basketball player.
One of the best ever.
Dude, he's got a genetic build that I've never seen. It's almost unhuman-like with the way that he's built. His height, he looks like somebody made him in a video game with all the cheesiest physical stats and brought him to life, like Weird Science type of shit.
99, 99,
and he came out to TV.
Well, we were talking about before about how, like, when I was really sick with COVID a couple years ago, I watched The Office, then I watched the Olympics. And to watch the Olympics that year and watch the basketball team, especially these guys that just came from the finals, to come and play together and to watch Kevin Durant lead that team, it was my favorite version of Kevin Durant ever. It wasn't about ego. It wasn't about anything. It was about learning from Coach Popovich and being the best basketball player on the court, whether it was the best passer, the best defender, the best shooter, the best leader. Like, I was just like, it just seemed like he was him. And I feel like I don't want to say I feel bad, but I kind of feel for the guy. Like, I always feel like, you're right, he's got such a chip on his shoulder. I just think it's fascinating to kind of look at why he does the things he does. The whole stuff with Kyrie. Like, it was like he kind of didn't really know what to say and didn't want to throw him. And then he was talking about the whole thing. Now he wants to get traded. It was like, bro, you put this whole thing together. Like you said this was going to work.
Yeah.
You know, you give a player too much, autonomy. We saw it with LeBron with the Lakers. You're seeing it with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers this year. Listen, you're going into the Hall of Fame as a player, not as a GM, as a coach. It's a different ball of wax.
It is.
So when you give a lot of these
different.
players, this autonomy to be able to make these decisions, you got to live with the ramifications. And you can't say, oh, deuces, I'm out of here. I want to trade. This isn't what I signed up for. Well, bro, you're the guy that made this.
Yeah,
right?
you put this together,
You're the
so
guy
now you
that
have to
put
see
this
it through.
together. So you do. So that's where he's so fascinating, because I wouldn't be surprised if he won another champ. He's not one of those guys I'd ever write off, because he's a guy
He is that good.
But his game can age gracefully, right? He can be a spot-up shooter when he's 37, right? Is anybody going to say, I don't want Kevin Durant playing the three and just standing out there? Do me a favor, stand out
just sit
there.
on the wing and just wait for the pass.
Exactly. He'll
and-
go
yeah.
6 for 10, hitting threes from the corner, and average 19 points a game
Yeah.
when he's 39 or 40 years old. Don't be surprised if he breaks a bunch of scoring records. But
Because
I
of
could also
longevity
see him,
alone,
But I could also see him retiring and saying, F this, I don't want to have to anything to do with anybody,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you just don't know.
Don't need the money.
Hell no.
Yeah,
No.
no, it definitely doesn't.
We went from the World Cup to basketball. Justin, you want to catch us up on the chat before we close it out?
Sure, man. Let's see. We got Saif's got a lot to say here. So, Saif is one of our viewers from the UK. So he was talking a little bit, if we'll run it back a little bit, talking about I think he's referring to fights. Works both ways, because in terms of deserving a title shot, Masvidal doesn't deserve one. It's unfair to higher ranked fighters to not be in the picture, which I understand, because from a purist standpoint, that's what we were talking about. But that fight sells tickets, and I'm all in it.
Yep.
And he agreed with something you said. I'm not sure exactly what. He said exactly what Berto said with a crying face. So you must have said something that he agreed with 100%.
Probably talking about Patty.
Yeah. So he also says, I think Dana's slowly losing it because look how quickly he made the Volk Islam fight. It's almost as if he knows he's got talent that exceeds that of the rest of the division. True. I mean, of course,
That is a great point. Sometimes you have to strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
When it gets to the MMA, you don't want, like with Sean O'Malley, right? Losing that fight to Chito is like, you don't want that hype train to be derailed off the tracks before you get that big payday. Not just the fighters, but the UFC. They want those pay-per-view buys.
Sure.
Like Conor was a great example. Another great example of that was Ronda. Like those Brock Lesnar. Like Brock Lesnar lost that fight to Frank Mir, and it could have been sideways, but he was able to come find his way back. Listen, he beat Randy Couture for the title. I mean, God bless Randy. He won the fight on an incredible way to win the title, beating Tim Sylvia, then beating Gabriel Gonzaga, and then fighting Brock. And it was just like, all right, we got a guy that, if you had one person to defend the human race, you'd probably pick Brock Lesnar going against Randy, who's like 46, right? So it's
Give
just
me
like
Brock on the juice.
if somebody came from another planet and was like, you pick one fighter, if they beat me, I don't destroy your planet.
Yeah, who you think will pick
Otherwise, I will
Demetrius
enslave
Johnson?
all humans.
Listen, you guys should do that one day. I did this one time, just kind of writing stuff down because I do things like that. I should do this, big MMA fans. If people came down from another planet and said, pick one fighter in his prime from each of the UFC weight classes, who would you send out there to represent us? And you can go from 125 with Demetrius. Like, obviously, he may not be the best now. I know he's the champ overseas in Singapore. But, like, at his peak at 125,
Unstoppable.
Like, Demetrius was the best.
I
right?
still think he's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters.
100%.
Of all time.
But,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
go down the list. Like, who would be your guy for heavyweight? Like, would it be Fedor? Would it be Cain
guy for
Velasquez?
heavyweight
Would it
probably be
Brock
Cain.
Lesnar? But I would probably say Brock Lesnar. And then you have two wild cards, right? So that you guys would have a lot of fun with
yeah.
it. 205, you could be like, all right, I'll go John Jones at 185. Like, would you go Israel? But I think Prime Anderson Silva would maybe kick your head off into next week, right? 170, having
Tricky.
GSP.
Because,
right?
again, it goes back
That's
to what you're
that-
saying about the era that you're fighting in.
Yeah, that's
His-
that Michael
but I'm
Jordan
saying
conversation,
in
right?
his prime, though,
in
155.
his
You'd have
prime.
BJ Penn, or 170 at GSP. Like, think about that. Like, that'd be a great conversation.
Yeah,
for you
it would
guys.
be great.
One
And
of
think
the-
about those guys lining up like the Avengers. Like, sing.
Yeah,
should be
all but in
badass.
peak prime
Exactly.
condition.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to touch on about like guys like Conor, what Conor did is that when you become champ, which Volk has the opportunity to do right now, it holds up one of the divisions, right? One of the divisions is getting held up because you can't fight for both. Like, even a guy like Volk that's going to fight 3 times a year, one of the divisions is still going to get held up.
I don't think it really gets held up because I don't think anybody beats Volk at featherweight right now.
But you look
He's
at
the
what
champ
Conor
as long
did.
as he wants to be.
At least he'll defend his belts. With Conor didn't defend his belts.
Well, he
was holding
vacated
up
them almost
divisions.
immediately. But I don't know if he was really holding up divisions because I think he vacated that title. He didn't defend the title once Either one of them. You know?
I think it does hold up the title if you have, like, if the champ at 135 right now was fighting somebody else. Like, the other times that we've seen it, like, DC was the double champ, but heavyweight was just him and Stipe, right? So what was he really holding up? 205, he kind of ran through that division. Amanda Nunes, 135, 145. There's not that many
There's
great
no
145ers. So
Nope.
to me, like, I think that's more of what could happen rather than what actually does happen. Because when you look at it, like, how many fights are you really holding up from, right? If it was a big time, like back in the day, if it happened at 205 and heavyweight, and you were like, well, Machida and Rashad and Rampage and all these guys aren't getting a title shot because Jones is fighting Kane and all those other guys, then you'd be like, damn, bro, that's screwing it up. But I think when you really break it down, like, what fights did we miss from Connor?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
with
think we
Conor,
miss any.
you're 100% right with
Because he
Conor.
didn't fight nobody.
Yeah.
Like, I think he would have held up one. Like, sometimes it's not just they'd hold up two; they would have held up one. So
Yeah.
it's just
But
like,
it won't be the
regardless.
same at 145, 155 because their divisions are a lot more stacked.
And these are very different guys.
Yeah,
though.
I agree.
Both of these guys are dogs.
Yeah.
They'll
I
both.
don't think Volk has a chance in this fight. Not a chance.
I'll tell you what. Either one of them is the only one that I think beats the other. Like, there's nobody else that I think beats Volk at 145. There's nobody at 155 that I think beats Islam right now.
Yeah.
So it's like they
don't
almost
disagree
have
with
to
that.
fight each other. Otherwise they both run through everybody.
What a super fight.
Well, it was kind of like Amanda Nunes against Cyborg, right? At that
Yeah.
time, the same thing. It's like, who was beating Amanda, and then she beat the brakes off of her.
Yeah.
I think Islam is just on a different level, man. He really is. He's one of those guys. I mean, he learned from a guy that was wrestling bears.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, for
Khabib
sure.
they would just drown you, and a guy like Islam he advanced his position so quickly. We talked about, like, dry humping guys.
Yeah.
Guys like that can take you down and then they finish you like that. Those are dangerous dudes because
Dangerous
you
dudes.
can't get out your seat. You
Yeah.
can't blink because
No.
the fight's over.
Yeah.
And if he lands a shot on you, like we saw Khabib against Conor, it was like, you really have no chance in fights like that. Like,
They're
what do
not-
you do?
When they say they maul people, it's not just like an expression.
No.
They're mauling people. They're getting on top of you, holding you down, and mauling you.
That's Sambo, that like type of MMA, like in that region, like in Dagestan and up in that Russian region there. There's such a development of fighters. We saw it with Fedor years ago, and we saw it with him, with Khabib, and we see it with here with Islam. It's just, I think that's one type of mixed martial art that has yet to really be cracked. Like, you really don't know how to beat a guy that can have solid stand up, but also control so much on the ground where he can tap you out like a jiu-jitsu guy,
Yeah.
but also control where the fight goes like a wrestling guy. It's a really good combination because you'll either get the guy that can take you down and do that thing, but once you get on his back, you don't really know, or the guy can really do a lot of damage on his, like Oliveira's, like
Yeah.
a great example of that.
Yep.
Right? So you just don't know. Like, when you put those guys in a disadvantage, like, where's his disadvantage? Like, how are you going to get Islam out of there? Like, once Khabib beat Conor, I was like, who's going to beat that guy?
Yeah, I think Combat Sambo is the biggest head start somebody can have on MMA training is Combat Sambo.
Yeah.
You have hardcore wrestling, you have solid jiu-jitsu techniques, and you have solid stand-up. I mean, it's MMA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing to MMA without being called MMA.
True.
So when a guy comes from that background, he's already like kind of fully ready to go.
Judo throws, jiu-jitsu submissions,
Yeah.
wrestling setups. Yeah, it's 100%.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's what we got. We're well past the hour. I know you got to get out of here. You're a busy man.
Appreciate you guys, man.
thank
We
you so
appreciate
much
you
for
coming
coming out. Are
on.
you kidding me? Thank
for
you,
sure,
man.
especially on a Monday, man. I know this is different.
Yeah, we'll
so-
do this again. I mean,
Yeah,
because
man.
I'll probably be single the next time.
for sure.
I'm joking. I love you.
Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. We appreciate everybody coming by. Everybody from from the U.S. Anywhere. UK listeners, everybody all over the world. We appreciate you guys. We didn't do the announcements in the beginning. We wanted to jump right into it. So just everybody, if you don't get a chance to watch the live podcast episode, you can always catch up. Going to watch the video that gets posted. Every single live episode gets posted on our YouTube channel. We also go live on Twitch simulcast. We're also uploading all of our content, all of our episodes up onto Rumble. Currently, we're doing it slowly each week. We're adding more. We have our clips and our shorts that we really hope you guys check out. If you don't have enough time to watch a full episode or a full video, you can watch the clips and the shorts. They're great highlights, give you guys a little idea of what we talked about that episode, or the content that we touch on, and audio version versions. Tell them about the audio version.
Audio versions on all of your podcast listening platforms: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. And if you have some obscure one that you use and we're not already on there, you just DM us on Instagram and I'll make sure that we upload on there.
Yeah, that's it. And please, if you did not like the video yet, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. So every time we go live, you are well aware of when that is happening and you can tune in live or watch the episode afterwards. And thank you, Jay.
You want
for
to take us out,
coming
man?
through.
Let us know where
My
they can,
man.
let them know where they can find you.
Yeah,
Follow
man.
me on all social media platforms. I sign up for all social media as soon as it comes out, so nobody can steal my name at JRecher, JAYRECHER. That's how I roll.
Nice, man. And then his the link to his Instagram will be down below in the description. And, you know, you guys can check him out. iHeartRadio,
Yes, sir.
weekdays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., the best sports talk radio show in Tampa and more than likely the country.
You got that right, baby.
You know?
Big
check us in the
facts.
mail. Check
That's
us
what
in
we
the
got,
mail.
man. Check us in the
That's
mail.
it.
So.
Swizz, take us out.
Swizz.
That's it, baby.
You muted the mic, Swizz?